thing. Now, I didn't want to kill anybody. I just wanted to, puke my brains out. That was cabin fever for me.
Hey, been there 2 weeks ago. I had the same thing. It's all good, man.
Let me tell you something. When I stepped out of my garage this morning, I did one of those dad stands on your front lawn and just goes...
Oh, I thought
like
you did the
air.
Breakfast Club where you walk out and you just put your hands in the air.
No, I'll do that.
We did it.
No.
We made it through, baby. Yeah.
I did that on Saturday after postgame when I remembered how to do postgame. Like, yeah.
T-Bone, are you going to be able to work over there?
I don't know. There's a lot. I feel like there's more buttons back here now.
3 weeks since you've been back there, man.
Yeah, if we have an air back here.
How have you guys been? I was expecting BK to have a couple of black eyes from having nobody to yell at.
Everything went great.
Yeah.
T-Bone, you handled this okay?
Yeah, there were a couple times, like a week ago, and he's talking about leadership in the Cardinals locker room and how they're going to be a 90-win team because of it.
You got to be bleeping kidding me.
God.
Why is it you always bring up that crap when I'm not here?
You know what's funny? Yesterday I talked about Jake Neighbors and how great he is. We talked about the vibes around the team, talked about leadership for the Cardinals. I got excited about the Chiefs. You couldn't have seen that one coming. That was
That's really why I was out yesterday. I couldn't handle it.
Good call.
That and losing $6,300 off of a half a freaking point.
Yeah, buddy. Can we talk about that real quick?
My dad is still upset about that.
He should be.
He's still pissed off.
So Alex placed some bets on a parlay. Good friends over at Circus Sports Illinois.
Yeah, as you know, we always do. Big parlays mean big money.
It was, a 10-leg parlay?
10-leg parlay.
And 9 of them hit.
Yep.
The one that didn't was the total for the game.
Over under 47.5.
If the Chiefs had just kicked the extra point at the end of overtime instead of, walking it off, it's the rule, that's how it goes. But if you're in Alex's position, you know how this works.
Change the damn overtime rules.
If the Chiefs had just simply kicked the extra point on the final possession, Alex wins.
$6,300.
Alex paying for his kids to go to college. Put that away. Put it into the market.
They're paying their own damn way to college.
Instead,
I just, you know what I got?
He lost money.
I got lost.
Paid for the ticket.
I lost my dinner later that night, and I was stuck at home the next day. That's what you did to me, Chiefs.
That's probably why you're really out sick yesterday.
I wish that was the only reason why. But I'm happy to be back.
It's
See
good
your
to have
beautiful
you, man.
faces.
We missed you.
I have a lot of energy ready to go.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How much do you think you slept in total last week? You were home alone doing the single dad thing. Like 10 hours?
Maybe 10 hours. Let's talk about the real factor into why I haven't had adult communication for at least 8 days. There has been me, a 2-year-old, and an 18-month-old. I've had a lot of Coco Melon.
I was about to say, have you had a lot of Coco Melon?
I can recite to you the damn wheels on the bus.
Coco Lemon?
Yeah. No, Coco Melon, not lemon. I've heard a lot of Disney songs this week. I haven't had adult communication for almost a week and a half.
Well, T-Bone's here to be your toddler, and I'll be here to have the adult
I don't know.
communication.
Some of your takes might be my toddler, but we'll see how the day goes.
It's similar in terms of the tone problem. We're both working on it. You're 6-month-old, me, or 1-year-old, I guess, at this point. Me, we're both roughly the same level of communication.
Let me ask you this. Does Lucas tell you no to everything these days?
Not yet, dude. We're not there.
No, we are. Both of them, actually.
He has decided he doesn't like baths anymore.
Tough.
He loved baths. First 6 months of his life, nothing better. Get in the bath, feeling good, right? Playing with the water.
Yeah.
The other day, we get in the bath, he said,
That's funny.
Like, oh, no.
That's funny. That's what my youngest does every time I put food in front of her. Cool. Daddy needs to feed you food. I'm sweating already.
T-Bone's just over here like, guys, you make it sound really cool to be parents. It's great.
It's fun.
It's the most rewarding you'll ever do.
In fact, I decided let's have another.
Yeah, I was up at 4:30 last night. My wife was up from 6 to 7:30, putting Luca back down, and then finally we got some sleep this morning.
I haven't even brought up the text line yet. Is it, Matt, talk some sports?
Not yet, dude. You should have seen it yesterday. People were very mad at me, as it was the most watched show in the history of television.
Yeah, I heard you didn't talk enough Blues yesterday.
Yeah, had 3 segments of Blues the day after the Super Bowl, and it was not enough. So,
the Niners would have won. I bet you would have had 5.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line, by the way. You can check us out on YouTube. You can see how exhausted Alex looks. I think you look beautiful, though. 101 ESPN STL is where you go to find us on YouTube. You can get in the chat over there. That's where the graveyard is, Alex. We've officially
Got a new
named them
nickname?
the graveyard. They named themselves that because it was so dead once upon a time. And now we've just, you know how sometimes a negative connotation can become a positive meaning?
Okay.
That's what this is now for our YouTube chat. That's the graveyard.
We're going to make T-shirts.
I find graveyards peaceful, so that's good.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Final
to
resting
me.
place. You know, it's a peaceful area. Everybody
People can
has
sleep.
has felt their destiny, and yes, everybody gets to sleep.
So, boys, you picking up some good vibes from the Cardinals down at Spring Training?
Actually not.
That's what we're opening with? The Blues have won like 5 in a row on the road, and we're opening with the good vibes of the Cardinals?
So, I don't totally understand what's happening right now, but there's been a bunch of pictures that have been tweeted out this morning from Jeff Jones, from Derek Gould, on the new jerseys that the Cardinals are wearing. Alex, have you seen these? It's bad, man.
I've seen the one picture of it, and people are saying they look cheap. And I
So-
can't deny them.
Derek Gould tweeted this out. The new look to the workout whites and home Cardinals jerseys. No chain stitching in the name on the jersey. No tail either. The Cardinals color red looks like it's a new shade. One veteran pitcher told Derek Gould, quote, "I don't like them." The name looks like it's too rounded. The numbers are definitely too close. They look a little smaller to me as well.
It looks like a jersey you'd buy in the mall.
It looks like a jersey I would buy from China. Like, I would go online, go to an illegal shop, place that I may or may not have bought a jersey from previously, and you buy them for $20 and you pay $30 for shipping.
BK bought a Kansas City Chef's jersey off of China's website.
I bought a Cardinals jersey
Go Cardinals!
on there. But another player told Jeff Jones, quote, "They look cheap," end quote. The fabric is a different consistency. The pants are no longer customized. They don't fit right, according to Miles
Now,
Michaels.
if I'm not mistaken,
this is just the jerseys.
This isn't a Cardinals thing, right? This is like a
This is
Major League Baseball thing.
Correct. So it's specific to the Cardinals in terms of what we're seeing here. But yeah, this is a Major League Baseball issue with Fanatics because they're now going through Fanatics instead
MLB
of
being
Nike.
cheap never happened.
Yeah, who could have seen that one coming?
Good.
So this is just the starting point. And then on top of that, we've got Derek Gould's reporting in the Post-Dispatch that basically says, yo, this clubhouse is not good. And he's not talking about the vibes from the players. The actual clubhouse structure itself is like half existing right now down in Jupiter, apparently. They were trying to get all of this construction done. Alex, the hope was that they would have it done by this spring. Instead, they have done basically nothing because of all of the stuff that's taken place down in Jupiter trying to get this thing done. It's not exactly the jumping off point that we were all looking for the 2024
you
Cardinals.
guys had a week of Ollie Marmol doing an interview with Xavier Scruggs, and everybody's jumping on this bandwagon saying Cardinals World Series bound. And then in a matter of snap of fingers, we're talking about the club's workout facilities looks like crap. The jerseys are cheap looking, and this team is not feeling those good vibrations.
No,
so, like World Series to top pick in the draft?
Well, let's chill.
Yeah, you couldn't ask
I
for.
don't know.
You couldn't ask for more of a bad omen to start a season, coming off of a 91 loss year. Again, I hope that this feels like the perfect thing for an excuse. Like when they get off to a slow start, I remember last year they're talking about how they were tired, and then they got 2 days off and just completely to bed against Pittsburgh at home.
Good thing they spent $35 million on a lot of grizzled vets to provide good vibrations in that locker room.
Good, because they're not going to let this kind of stuff happen.
Lance Lynn can tell everybody about what it's like to be around a crappy
You
clubhouse.
saw Lance Lynn, what he's driving, right?
Yeah, I saw.
He's got a
Pink Barbie Jeep.
Bronco.
Yep. And see, that was worth the $12 million.
That alone.
We don't need a good starting pitcher with strikeout stuff. We need a guy who's going to get
As I
everybody
told
laughing.
you, Alex, Lance Lynn, a better strikeout rate, a better swing and miss rate, than Shohei Ohtani last year.
right.
So
And
he
if-
actually did get a strikeout starter. He just happened to give up 45 home runs.
And if you would compare the excitement of the fan base of when the Cardinals found out that Lance Lynn was returning and the Dodgers getting Shohei, you would say, who's who? Who's who? I can't tell. What fan base is more excited?
Actually, you would say that you got more out of it because Shohei is not throwing this year.
Well, and Lance is driving a pink Bronco.
We're getting more innings, baby.
We got good vibes and an actual pitcher.
You know what?
So,
Hell yeah. All aboard the
honestly,
train.
I know you're upset, but like you would have been real mad if you had signed Shohei Ohtani expecting him to start for you this year as a pitcher. That would have been a big problem.
Or you would have been real dumb if you would have signed Shohei Ohtani expecting him to. Wait, Shohei, you're not pitching this
Hey,
year?
it's not like we've signed anybody that wasn't good at their position and learned a month into the season before, you know?
Very true.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I appreciate this. From the 314. Guys, the positive way to look at this is when everything was going right starting off, they had a terrible season. So maybe the opposite will happen if things start off a little negative and great things happen during the regular
When
season.
did it start great?
Sir, that's a great point.
Wait, when did it start
I
off
think
great
it's a
last
false
year?
premise. I'm not totally sure that things started off super great
Yeah,
last
What are
year.
you talking about?
I
They
remember
had
the
a great
Cardinals-
opening day.
I remember the Cardinals crying, "Oh, so many guys are leaving for the World Baseball Classic.
They
We'll
won,
be able
but
to-
they won against the Blue Jays
we
on
can't
opening
develop
day.
chemistry like we're a basketball team."
By the way, if they're whining about World Baseball Classic, what do you think you're going to be saying when the workout facilities for spring training's not 100%?
It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's
I
chill.
can't wait for.
It's all copacetic.
I can't wait for
They're
the
not going
first
to win a game in April.
spring training game. Oh God.
So last thing that I wanted to get to from Cardinals camp, this is the time of year where you're like, oh, who's going to make the roster? What's the competition? Guys, the Cardinals don't actually have competitions going on, right? Like, we can all be honest about this.
The bullpen?
What? There's always internal competition happening.
If you want to be technical about it, I think there's 2 bench spots up for grabs,
No, there's not.
but really they're in really dark pencil. You've got Matt Carpenter and Alec Burleson's name written in. Now, something could go awry, and maybe Fermin, Kennedy, Rivas, Young, one of those guys ends up making the roster. I'd be pretty surprised. But that's your last 2 bench spots, okay? In the bullpen, you've got technically 3 spots available for you. I'm not sure that it's actually 3, though, because you got one Rule 5 guy who, if he's not on the 26-man roster, he goes back to Boston. So that spot's probably taken. So now you're down to 2. And those 2 spots are probably going to come down to John King. I think he's going to make this roster. I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't. So maybe 1 spot actually is available for you. And that's going to come down to Robertson, Palante, Liberatore, Graceffo, O'Brien, etc. Thompson, we throw in there.
Or
Is there actually any competition at this camp? I think all of the starting spots are spoken for. I think the rotation is already solidified. Your bench spots are pretty much accounted for. There's like 1 spot in the bullpen that's available. That's it. Am I wrong here?
No.
Am I missing something?
I don't even know if there's 1 spot in the bullpen. I think the Cardinals probably have it decided, and somebody's going to have to outperform. But yeah, I think there's no bench spots available. You're not signing Matt Carpenter for somebody to outcompete him for a roster spot. I don't care if Jose Fermin plays like Barry Bonds at spring training. Matt Carpenter's on this team.
Would be quite impressive.
It would be very impressive. I would question his offseason, but it'd be very impressive. But then it comes down, I mean, is Fermin going to outperform over Alec Burleson? I just don't believe so. Unless somebody just completely issues the bed, or defensively they need a lot of help. I think that's Burleson and Carpenter.
Or injuries,
Yeah.
but that's not a competition.
And that never happens at spring training for the Cardinals.
Correct.
No. Yeah,
Tommy Edman will be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cardinals medical staff told us.
I think position player wise, I think it's all set. I think those 13 guys are in place. And the only spot for me, I agree, the rotation's locked up. The whole story of like, oh, Thompson pitches. Well, no, they won't. I think it's 3 spots in the bullpen, and I kind of agree with what you said. King's probably a lock into that because I think they're going to want a second lefty, and then it comes down to those names that you said. I think one of those spots. I mean, Alex said it. That 1 spot's probably a lock. They're going to want to carry a swingman. They love the idea of the long reliever, the swingman. So somebody in between that Liberatore, Thompson. I'll throw Graceffo in there, but I think if he's in the bullpen, it's more of a 1-inning guy. Those guys are the guys that are really competing for that long reliever spot, and I think that's about it.
So it'll be fun. We got about a month and a half of spring
You're giving
training
off bad
to watch.
vibrations,
You know what?
just like the
Before we get
clubhouse
into the
boys.
Cardinals regular season and we find out if this team's any good.
We
So.
need some Beach Boys. I'm picking up good vibrations.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Jeremy Rutherford joins the show coming up in about 15 minutes or so. He's up in Toronto where he's going to be spending the entire day in his hotel room, which is a little disappointing. I mean, you're in Toronto, man. Like, go get some poutine or something. Enjoy yourself.
Get some what?
poutine?
Oh,
You know what I said.
didn't know he said that.
Coming up
Yeah,
next.
some gravy fries. Go get those.
Just drenched in gravy.
Oh, yeah. That's what we need. Got some hot dogs in Montreal, too. Did you see Jake Neighbors got a celebratory hot dog?
Yeah, he said he's been crushing the hot dogs and he had 1.
Well, he's a hockey
like,
player.
come on,
You
man.
only get 1, man.
Yeah, how do you keep
Got to
that
stay in
physique?
shape. Otherwise, you can't be a power forward.
Otherwise, you look like this, you know?
For those that didn't see, he pointed to his stomach.
Yeah.
His gut. Coming up next.
It's hot dog.
There's a lesson to be learned from the Chiefs for the rest of the league. I'm not sure this is the one that a former NFL general manager had to say that I would be wanting to learn if I'm the other teams around the league. We'll tell you what that is next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on VK, we've already got our off-air Super Bowl takes flowing here today. Alex was a big fan of Usher, and this is why I wanted Alex to be here yesterday, because T-Bone was over here trying to cramp my style when I was talking about how excited I was to see Usher, which is basically our childhood, Alex. Like, our middle school to high school days were on full display yesterday.
So many nights
Sunday.
spent at the roller skating rink listening to Usher.
This guy doesn't even know what it means to go to a roller skating rink. No chance you've been roller skating.
No, I've been roller skating. My hometown had a roller skating rink.
Well, of course they did. They
Now, it
don't
closed
even
when I
have
was in middle
stoplight
school.
grades.
Exactly.
But we had one weeks ago.
My first date was we went out to a date and the song "My Boo" with Usher and Alicia Keys played.
One of you skating backwards, obviously not me.
I couldn't do it backwards either, man.
Nah,
always the girl.
The girl's skating backwards as you're skating forward. You got the hands in
and
front.
you'd sing to her too. It was always that West Coast, East Coast where you had to skate and pick the girl and dance.
100%.
They turned you down and you had to skate back by yourself. And that happened to anybody else? No? Just me? All right, cool. Wait, you can't ish on a Super Bowl halftime show, T-Bone, if you've never even listened to the artist that's singing.
The worst part is T-Bone was over there like, I asked him, I said, okay, what can they do to appeal to you, right? Because it's like, okay, we're not just going to present
needs the
problems
Wiggles
here.
to show up.
Yeah. We're not just going to present problems. We need to be a solution-oriented show here on BK and Ferrario. That's our thing. We are solution-oriented.
That's our thing.
And he said, you know what? I just don't think that it's for me. I was like, okay, we've gotten to the root cause
Play
here.
football.
What Super Bowl halftime show is for you?
Nothing.
I don't know. I thought like Black Keys would be cool, but I want to see a concert, not somebody dancing around. Usher didn't even sing in the last song.
Yeah, he did.
No, he just stood there bouncing around, roller skating.
By the way, it was like the most successful song that Usher has ever had. You didn't like.
And as you just said off air, the whole reason it'll be memorable, not because of Usher, because everybody he brought with them.
Yeah, but almost every halftime is the most memorable part of the guests that they bring out with them.
Correct.
And Ludacris walking out, I lost my mind in my house when I saw Ludacris. And he had his afro. I was so excited.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was
T-Bone.
great. It wasn't the greatest one ever.
No.
I'm not overstating anything. It was
J-Lo and Shakira was.
It is now to the point where Alex and I are the washed people that are watching the halftime shows. And I have now realized, because I used to say, man, all of these halftime shows are for the olds. Like, it's for the geriatric community.
Still holds true.
And now I'm realizing that we are the community that they are trying to get their show to be geared towards. And it's been a rough couple of weeks. I've talked to my therapist about it. And now that's us.
Yeah.
That's now us that
We
they're
are
trying
old these days.
to target with that.
That's okay, though.
All right. So the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. That was pretty cool.
We don't need to get into that.
Randy Mueller, we're not going to talk about it today. That was yesterday's show. Today we're going to move on. We're going to try to push this thing forward.
Pick the worst data or best day to poison myself.
Former NFL general manager, 2000 executive of the year in the NFL, tweeted this out earlier today. He does a podcast over on The Athletic. It's actually a really good show. Said the Chiefs are now the poster child for not paying a wide receiver. Will other teams adopt and tamp down values on this year's mediocre group of free agency wide receivers as a result? Alex, maybe I'm off base here, but if there is one lesson to be learned from the Chiefs, I would think it's the opposite of this lesson. My lesson from this year's Chiefs season was, hot damn, they did not value wide receiver enough. And this former NFL general manager is saying, hey, it's clear you can now win without valuing wide receivers. My retort would be this. If you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, a top 5 defense, and Andy Reid, and the infrastructure of a 2-time Super Bowl winning team in the last 3 years, yeah, you can maybe skate through and find a way to win a Super Bowl. If you don't have those other things, though, those are the prerequisites to getting to the Super Bowl to have that chance to win without valuing wide receivers. I would say it's the opposite. You got to value those receivers.
What's funny about that is just like thinking in that mindset. Like, you really think Andy Reid walks out of that Super Bowl and is like, you know what we just proved? We can win with no wide receivers. He's probably calling the general manager up and saying, get me some damn receivers next season.
That was harder than it should have been.
We relied on Mecole Hardman to win us the damn Super Bowl in overtime. Like, they won the Super Bowl and were clearly the better team last year with Juju Smith-Schuster as their number 1 wide receiver. The lesson learned here is, hey, we just need somebody to the same talent level as Juju, and we can be good. But no, you don't walk out of that Super Bowl thinking, nah, you don't need wide receivers. You know what we need? We need good running backs and a good quarterback. Well, cool. That's what everybody freaking needs. Good luck finding a Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that's the truth. The truth of what the lesson... Just hit puberty there. The truth of the lesson... I felt like Patrick Mahomes. The truth of this year's Chiefs team is... Hey, the lesson is, hey, go find yourself the next great quarterback in the history of football. If you have that, nothing else really matters. Like, you'll just find a way to overcome everything else. But that's not realistic, man. You can't just go into this year's draft and be like, hey, I'd like one Patrick Mahomes, please, and just hit a button and it just shoots out a dispenser of the next Patrick Mahomes.
You think Cleveland's been asking for the next Patrick Mahomes every draft in the last 20 years?
Are like, I'll take two, please. Please, just have one on backup just in case.
But then they'll probably trade that pick away.
Of course.
So they won't take him.
They literally had the opportunity to take Patrick Mahomes and instead took Mitch Trubisky. Nice. But the lesson to be learned from this year's team was invest in as many different quarterback options as you possibly can until you get it right. That's what the Chiefs did, man. The Chiefs tried it with Matt Castle. It didn't work. They tried it with Alex Smith. It worked to a degree, but then they knew we've got to upgrade. This isn't good enough. And I think if you're looking at other teams around the league, and we've been talking about this for 5 years, it's not anything new. The lesson from the Chiefs of this last 5 years is don't settle. Don't settle. Don't sit with a quarterback like Giants. Learn the lesson. You gave $40 million to Daniel Jones, who was like the 25th best quarterback in the league. I think there's a chance that the Dolphins are going to be making a big mistake this offseason. Don't settle with Tua. Don't give him the 5-year contract right now. Play this thing out. Find out, is this guy actually the right quarterback for us to be able to win at a high level, to go up against Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud? I think the answer is no. But if you go ahead and lock yourself into that, you're screwed. So invest and continue to take shots on finding a legit top 10 quarterback. And if you fail, so be it, man. That is the cost of doing business. But once you get it right, that's when you can actually compete with the big boys. And it's almost a requirement now to be able to get through the postseason. If you're in the AFC especially, if you don't have that quarterback, you're done. You got no chance.
If anything, if there was a lesson from this, Kansas City should know, like, hey, the roster we have, we can win if we don't have that talent. But you don't go into next season saying, well, we don't need it because we just won the Super Bowl. It's we need this, but if something happens, we know we still have the talent as long as Patrick Mahomes. But you're going beyond Patrick Mahomes. Like, you're talking about having Chris Jones on defense. You're talking about having Travis Kelce, who carried that team in the second half.
That's actually a really good point. Blue chip players matter in this league.
Absolutely.
Too. Like, in the Super Bowl, it mattered that the 49ers had Christian McCaffrey. We have done this thing, and I'm part of it, right, where I say running backs don't matter. Running backs don't matter to a degree. When you have a player that is of the caliber of Christian McCaffrey, who's a future Hall of Famer, that matters. It matters a lot because it changes the math for the defense. They now have to put so many guys in the box that it allows you to have a better passing game because that guy exists in your backfield on any given play. The Chiefs had a blue chipper at quarterback this year. They had a blue chipper at tight end. Chris Jones, blue chip player. They had 2 blue chip cornerbacks this season. Those are the guys that ended up helping them win the Super Bowl. If you don't have every single one of those players, you're done. And so if you're one of these teams that has a potential transcendent talent right now, do whatever it is that you can to be able to keep that guy on your roster. And if you have the opportunity this offseason, and it's going to be expensive, but the opportunity to go get one, you do whatever is in your power to make sure that player lands on your roster. Don't overspend for mid-tier talent. This is a lesson to the Cardinals, frankly. Spend for the stars. Spend for the guys that actually change the game whenever you get to the biggest possible stage. That's what the Chiefs did. It's what the 49ers did. It's what the Ravens are doing. It's what we've seen from the Lions, I think, in the future. That this offseason, their plan should be go get more stars. Yeah. And when you do that, you've got an opportunity to win something meaningful. So that the lesson to be learned from the Chiefs, absolutely not. Don't value wide receivers. It's, hey, if you have all of this other stuff in place, the wide receivers are less important. But if you don't have this stuff, go get yourself a wide receiver because that's the only way you're getting to the Super Bowl. If you're the 49ers, Brock Purdy, for example, in the Super Bowl. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Questions and answers at 11:45. Jeremy Rutherford joins us live from Toronto coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out at victorymenshealth.com. If you got something that you want to get taken care of, maybe you want some help with the ED issues, you've got weight loss that you want to get on top of, you've got low testosterone, whatever it is that you're looking for, they can potentially help you out. victorymenshealth.com is the place to go. You'll be able to find their 3 different locations that they've had across the St. Louis metro when you go over there, and you can learn more about their 4th location, which just opened up a couple of weeks ago in Sunset Hills, Missouri, right off of Watson Road. More information is available on that over at victorymenshealth.com. If you want to go in, that is one way to do it, or they can help you out with their new telehealth option. If you are residing in Illinois or Missouri, this process is super easy. Go to the website, once again, victorymenshealth.com. You click on the telehealth tab, and from there, you'll pick the service that you're interested in, whether it's weight loss, hormones, micronutrient testing, and based on the service that you're interested in, they'll ship that lab draw kit directly to your home, and once the results are in, they'll do a telehealth consult to review your results. It's all available for you today at victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
Jay Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for a puck drop at 6. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
So Patrick Mahomes is on CNN right now. Their host legitimately just asked this question, Alex. Could you please comment on the conspiracy theories that the Super Bowl victory was actually rigged to benefit the Democrats?
You got to be bleeping. That is the question that was just asked to him.
Can you imagine? Patrick Mahomes is he's at Disney World right now. He spent Sunday night on a drunken bender, which he deserved, out in Vegas. He was hanging out with Post Malone and a bunch of different celebrities. Taylor Swift was there, of course. They're hanging out. They're partying all night long. And then yesterday, he flies from, I would imagine, Vegas to Kansas City. And then from Kansas City straight to Disney World. He's doing this interview on CNN. He's like, hey, can you please comment on the fact that your Super Bowl victory was actually rigged? What a time to be alive.
If I'm him, I'm like, I'm sorry, you just cut out. We gotta reconnect because I'm not answering that damn question. I'm at Disney World, man.
I'm running on 2 hours of sleep. I've got multiple kids. My wife's upset with me because I didn't do anything on Sunday night for them because I was on a drunken stupor.
Kid screaming over here, he wants a Mickey Mouse ice cream. This kid wants to go on It's a Small World, and you're asking me about the Democratic Party? What are we doing?
All right, let's go to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford. He's our Blues insider for The Athletic. Maybe he's got some comments on the rigged Super Bowl. You can follow him on Twitter at JP Rutherford. JR, appreciate the time, man. How's Toronto?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But I think I got that situation figured out. I think it's because he's at Disney World with his family. He said to his PR department, can you please have CNN get me and ask me some questions about the conspiracy just so I can get out of the line for this ride? And my kid wants this and that. I'll do whatever. Just get me out of here.
Honestly, as somebody who just went through that, touche. I don't want to stand in line for Mickey Mouse for an hour and a half. So let me go do this interview while they stand in line.
Yeah, more interviews, please. No, guys, I'm doing fine. But BK, I texted you earlier today. I told you I really missed out last night. I had a great night for one. I went to Aurora, which is about an hour away from Toronto, to hook up with the family of Robert Thomas and learn about Robert and his upbringing and what made him into the player that he is today. And I come back to my hotel in Toronto. And there's just traffic everywhere, horns honking. There's just a vibe in the air here in downtown Toronto. I'm like, what did I miss? Is there a concert? Turns out the San Antonio Spurs are in town. And Victor, can you guys help me?
Wembanyama.
You're good.
Nailed it.
Everybody calls him Wemby.
Performance for the ages. I mean, triple-double, block shots was the third category. Guys, I had fun doing what I did last night with the Thomas family, but I'm not an NBA guy, but to see a performance like that would have been something.
What's worse, him being in Toronto the night that Wemby went for the triple-double with 10 blocks, something that almost never happens.
Ooh, I know where this is going. Or BK stuck in an LA restaurant when Pujols hit 700 home runs.
Correct. After asking the group, could we please go to the Dodgers game tonight? I think Albert is going to hit 700. The three guys in the group, you'll be shocked to hear this, JR, all in favor of going to the Dodgers game. It was literally 5 minutes away from our table at the restaurant. My wife was in favor of going to the Cardinals game. Her friends were not. So
I'd still say BK takes the cake on that one.
Yeah. So it could always just remember, JR. It could always be.
You could always be BK.
I had a great night. Scott Thomas, Robert's dad, made a marry me chicken dish. He's a great cook, and we sat there for a couple hours and talked about Robert. So I was by no means stuck. I just wish that maybe the nights would have worked out differently, and they could have seen something like that.
Yeah,
so, anyway,
I got a quick question. How uncomfortable do you feel when you're sitting at a dinner table with Robert Thomas's dad and mom?
It was great. They were so accommodating. Look, he said, I'll come pick you up. I said, no, I'll take an Uber. It's an hour away. I don't want to get you stuck in the traffic. I pull in. He's making dinner. It says on Robert Thomas's Wikipedia page that his dad's a chef. He says that he's not, but I'm telling you guys, this guy can cook. He was tremendous. He looked like, I told him he looked like Rachel Ray over at the stove, like most of the night. And then he brings the dish over, and they're telling me about Robert and playing with Connor McDavid growing up and Quinn Hughes, and he knows such great stories that I'm going to be able to pass along in The Athletic. And then get this, his wife Deb goes downstairs and she's got a freezer full of chocolate chip cookies that she makes, and she sets one on the table, lets it thaw out, and I have a chocolate chip cookie. She said, hey, the Kachucks love these. I'm famous for these cookies. Keith and Chantel, Matthew and Brady's mom, they know that I make these. So what did I do? I take a picture of me eating one of Deb Thomas's picture. No. I send it to Big Walt. I'm waiting for it. Here it comes. Text from Big Walt. Lay off the cookies, JR.
Of course, that was going to be the response from Big Walt. We all saw that one coming.
All right, JR, let's talk about these Blues for a couple of minutes because, hey, man, I have been skeptical. I've been mostly negative about this team all year long. I mean, they fired their coach midway through the season, and there were people that were like, oh, this is 2019 all over again. And I push back. Man, they are playing some inspired hockey. The loss going into the break kind of threw us off the scent. Terrible performance against Columbus. No excuse for that. But otherwise, they've been great for close to a month now. How much are you believing what we are seeing right now, JR?
Well, I believe in what they're doing in terms of going out and giving an honest effort and executing better and winning games, and it looks good. Like, I know we're not trying to compare the 2019 team here, but to me, that was a great team that just could not figure it out, and then they did, and then they just got on a roll. I think this is a team that the roster isn't nearly comparable, but I think they're just finding the right thing to do right now, and they're getting rewarded for how they're playing, and it's working for them right now. So could they make the playoffs? Yes. Could they win around? Yes. In 2 weeks, could they stumble and then we look back and say, well, this wasn't the team that we saw a couple weeks ago having that success? Yeah, I think that could happen too. So I don't want to take anything away from them. I think they're responding to Drew Bannister. I think the things that we needed to see, some of that secondary scoring has popped up in the last few games. And I think the power play, which was the point of contention all season long, has looked great. I mean, I did some number crunching yesterday, guys. They've won 7 of their last 8, we know. In those 8 games, the power play is 37%. That's second in the league behind Florida. In that 8-game span, who would have thought we'd be talking about the power play having that kind of success at this time of the year?
Speaking of that power play, JR, Torey Krug coming off of a game where he has 2 assists on 2 power play goals. He has 5 in the game. Do you believe that he has changed the narrative of his time in St. Louis compared to what it was in the offseason at the beginning of this year?
I think that he's improved it. I don't think that he's changed it yet. I think that I see it that it's been a good year for Torey Krug in terms of, last year the defense for the whole unit was terrible. Torey Krug was a big part of that. I think this year I've seen a Torey Krug, there have been some hiccups and, people, I see it on my Twitter during the game. There's another mistake by Torey Krug. But by and large, for the most part, I think he's been physical. I think he's, closed out a lot of plays. The offense hasn't necessarily been there. The power play hasn't been there until recently. So I do think there's room for, some criticism. But I think he's changed it. This could have definitely went the same direction that it was going last year, especially with the trade speculation, so on and so forth. But I think his play has improved, and some people have taken notice. And, if he sticks around and finishes out the year, I think he's got a chance to try to continue to put it in that right direction.
JR, final question that I've got for you, and Jeremy Rutherford is our guest. He's the Blues insider for The Athletic. He joins us weekly here on BK and Ferrario. You can follow him on Twitter. You'll be able to see that link soon for the Robert Thomas story that he's putting together for The Athletic at JP Rutherford. I wanted to ask you about Jake Neighbors. Gordie Howe hat trick over the weekend, scored, I think it was 3 goals in the 2 games overall. He's up to 18 on the season, on pace for almost 30 this year. If I asked you this question, what would be the fill in the blank? Jake Neighbors is the best Blues power forward winger since blank?
On the spot here, I would say David Backes. I think that, David Backes did move to the center. He was by, early in his career, a winger, and I think, Andy Murray was the one that moved him to center. So however you want to classify him. But I just think in terms of, doing the right things. And, I asked Jake Neighbors a couple days ago there in Buffalo. I said, did you ever see yourself as a 20-goal scorer? And he said, no. I'm waiting for a yes. And he says, no. But the things that he does, guys, I'm sure you broke it down, but you go back to that goal where he set up Shen, and then Shen has the shot off the pads, and then Neighbor drives the net and scores. That pass off the boards that bounces to Shen and creates that whole situation, that's not somebody his age that makes that type of play. So that speaks to his maturity, his level of thinking, intelligence on the ice, being smart. There's just so much to him. And, Backes used to bang, right, and get in front of the net as well. I think Neighbors can do that. And maybe as he gets older, it's not a massive part of his game, but it is now as he's getting himself established. So, there's other players. Alexander Steen used to do stuff similar to Jake Neighbors. Those are definitely 2 guys that you like to be lumped in with.
JR, appreciate the time as always, man. Fun game tonight. Blues versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. A lot of storylines surrounding this Toronto Maple Leafs team right now. Not exactly the great spot for them coming into this one. They're going to be without one of their key defensemen after an interesting play at the end of that Ottawa game over the weekend. So certainly plenty to follow there. We'll be doing it all over at The Athletic, at JP Rutherford on Twitter. Appreciate the time, my friend. We'll talk with you again soon.
All right, thanks, boys. Talk to you later.
That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I Let's spend a couple of seconds on this here. Did you see the play? Was it Morgan Riley who...
Yeah, their best defenseman.
So, for people that aren't familiar with what happened over the weekend, Ottawa had an empty netter. One of their players, instead of just tapping it in, decided to have the audacity to actually shoot it into the back of the net, taking out some frustration, I'm sure. That's basically what it was. And technically, it's seen as showing up the other team, right? It's like flipping your bat in baseball or taunting in the NFL, getting into the end zone, and then like throwing the ball at the other team. That's essentially the equivalent of what happened here. So Morgan Riley takes it into his own hands and like cross-checks him into the wall right after he scores the goal.
Yeah, in his face.
People seem to have the opinion, and maybe I'm just soft here, that was obviously not the correct retaliation, but that some kind of retaliation needed to take place there. Alex, why? Why did there need to be retaliation after, like, it's an empty net goal. Why does it matter if he taps it in versus like a slap shot into the back of the net? I'm confused by it.
I would say it's the equivalent of if a pitcher throws the ball inside and high at a batter's head, you're expecting the retaliation from the other side. Like, if a guy is going to do that, now it's not the same because obviously you're trying to injure the individual compared to showing the other team up, but there's these unwritten rules in hockey, and whether you like them or not, it's taunting, it's showing up the other team, it's like flipping off the other team at the end of a game. So I can understand the other side being frustrated, but here's my problem with it. If you're Morgan Riley, why not just skate over there and drop your gloves 100%. And punch the guy?
Yeah, that was the correct retaliation if you're going to have one.
What Ryan Reeves said, I actually agree with him. And maybe I'm just old school because it's the older brand of hockey. But the younger side of hockey that's coming in, they play the game a different style. And so guys have to kind of force the old style onto them. Whether you like it or not, that's how it is. But Morgan Riley not just only screwed his team over for now he's going to miss 5 to 10 games because of those actions.
And he deserves to.
And he deserves it. And all you needed to do to send the exact same message was to go over there, drop the gloves, and start punching. Because the worst thing that was going to happen to you was you get a game misconduct, and you probably get fined. But instead, you decided to go over and cross-check him in the face. I'm with you. I think sometimes individuals can get way too soft when it comes to stuff like that they have to go over and send a message. But, like, cool, send your message, but with your fists, not a stick to the face.
100%. It was very clearly. I haven't seen anybody saying, like, this was the right thing. He handled this the correct way.
Other than Sheldon Keefe.
Right. Which, if really the quibble is, does it even need to be taken care of? Because I understand, like what you're saying right now, I would have no issue if he did that. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but for me personally, like, and this is me who I've never picked up a stick, I've never put on the skates, like I was not a hockey player growing up, so I am purely approaching this as a third party from the outside looking in. I can speak to it from basketball or football, like I don't care if you celebrate after a big play. In baseball, if you're up big and you hit a home run, and it's just a monster home run to finish this thing off to, like, really seal the deal, I got no problem with you pimping that thing. No problem whatsoever. I know old school, you absolutely should not do that, and it's going to be taken care of the next time those two teams meet.
For sure.
I don't think that's happening as much anymore, and honestly, I kind of like it. I like that there's a little bit more personality in the game. Somebody on the text line said, guys, it's like dancing on the Cowboys logo. Love it. Great. Do more of that.
Yeah, I
would
care
like
about
to see
that.
more of that in football. From the 636, it's like slamming the ball down instead of laying it up in basketball. Cool. I like that. I would prefer to have that at the end of a basketball game.
And I mean,
with some authority.
When Jose Bautista did the big bat toss in the middle of that game and everybody got their panties up in a wad, like, sure, it pisses you off, but it's a part of the game. He's celebrating. Now, I think more like people saw this as him taunting the other side. I think some of this also was just Ridley Greig being pissed off that he has been struggling and he decided to take his aggression out on a puck.
And his team has been terrible.
Absolutely.
Too. Like
but regardless, if you're Toronto, I don't think you should be worried so much about a guy putting a putt in the net with a slap shot. Be more worried about your team's overall performance where, by the way, one of your best players in Morgan Riley just is now going to miss the next 6 games because he decided to cross-check a dude in the face.
So that's the team the Blues are taking on tonight. Blues versus the Maple Leafs up in Toronto. That's going to be an early one for you right here on 101 ESPN. Alex's pregame starting at 5 o'clock. Puck drop for Blues versus Toronto coming up tonight at at 6. All right, coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at 100 West Dental. You've heard me talk a lot about them and my experience there, and you've heard me talk about the deal that they have going on right now, an Invisalign package that you can get $1,000 off. And I got a testimony from a friend of mine who was out at 100 West Dental, and he texted me and he said, look, as somebody who has been to a couple of different dentists over the years, he said, this deal is unbelievable. It's got easy experience and technology that shows you exactly what your teeth will look like with a digital scanner. He said, best money I've ever spent. So that was just one person talking about Invisalign with 100 West Dental. But the technology there is what you're getting with 100 West Dental. You're getting somebody who's up to date with that, an office that's got the most modern technology and focuses on the patient experience. They're there to help you, your teeth, your overall mouth health with a long-term health early detection. So they're not just checking to see if you got cavities and letting you out the door. No, they're making sure that you and your mouth are taken care of when you're in the seat at 100 West Dental. So go check them out. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. You'll get $1,000 off at that Invisalign package. Schedule online, 100westdental.com. Get with the best at 100 West.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's good to have the gang back together, boys.
Yeah, it is.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line.
I ever thought I would be happy to see you, but I was happy to see you today.
I missed you too,
Well,
bud.
I'd give it 3 hours.
Well, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm going to be wishing for 2 weeks of vacation probably tomorrow, but for now, I was very happy to see you.
Don't you worry. I'll be taking off here pretty soon.
No surprise there.
The two of you.
I'm not saying
No.
anything.
T-Bone took like 6 days off. You took 11 days off.
Yeah.
I've heard enough of this
used
nonsense about me taking vacation.
I used almost all of my vacation days.
I think I have 3 weeks of vacation right now accrued for this year.
I think I have
And I get 3 more weeks, so you guys just wait. It's going to be a fun
I'll
year.
have 3 weeks by August times rolled around, which then I'm going to be off again, so.
And T-Bone gets no more vacation.
Yeah,
He's done.
T-Bone-
He's out for the year.
Sorry, man. You're here no matter what.
All right, from the 314. Guys, the Super Bowl is in New Orleans next year. Do you think there is somebody that makes sense as a New Orleans native to perform at halftime? Lil
let's just
Wayne
play
is one
football.
that immediately comes to mind.
Lil
for
Wayne,
me.
I don't think can perform at a Super Bowl. Like, I just don't know if, like, don't get me wrong, like, he's probably one of the most successful rappers. But I don't know if you can pull off a Super Bowl with what the Lil Wayne style, if that makes sense. That'd be
Yeah.
like T-Pain doing a Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to work.
I think that's fair. I'm sure there's somebody immediately
I'm trying to think of, like,
that is obvious that I'm not thinking of, but Lil Wayne is the one that immediately came to mind for me, honestly. Like Lil Boosie, but I don't
Boosie.
think he's in prison anymore. But that would be one option. I'm not sure. Like I feel like you got to do something.
DJ Khaled.
He's from New Orleans. I'm not questioning. I didn't know that.
New Orleans, he was born there.
I feel like you got to do something jazzy. Like you've got to get some of the vibes from New Orleans, but I don't know how you do that as a halftime show for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through right now just to see like famous musicians that were born in New Orleans, and like I'm not
Britney
seeing.
Spears is from Louisiana.
I don't think that's.
I think that's a good
You
move.
don't think
I don't think that's a good move right now.
I wouldn't say that would be immediately my first.
I mean,
call
don't get me
for
wrong.
that.
I'd watch it. Love me some Britney Spears, but yeah, I'm not seeing anybody on this list right now that jumps out at me.
I think you've got to do something jazz related, even if it's somebody that comes in as a Batman or a Robin to somebody else's Batman. You got to include them in some way. You
I
got to
mean,
be able
Lil
to get
Wayne
some
will
of the
be a
local
part
flair.
of it. Don't get me
He's got to be
wrong.
there for somebody. I think he'll be.
I mean, too bad Louis Armstrong has passed away. He'd be great.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I'd watch that one.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 314, guys, if you were Patrick Mahomes, would you actually go to Disneyland or just say that you went to Disneyland?
Oh, I would just say I went to Disneyland. After all of that, there's no freaking way I want to go to Disneyland.
Yeah, that's where I am.
I mean, I would want to enjoy the time in Vegas. I know he was there, but like you were there for the evening and then you had to leave. I'd want to enjoy my time there and celebrate, and then I'd want to just go home and relax and party in Kansas City. I would not want to be going to Disneyland.
Yeah, I would have no interest in going to Disneyland after being in Las Vegas, partying it up, and then like getting 2 hours of sleep to go to the quote unquote happiest place
Now,
on earth.
you have to take into consideration he's got a family, and this is like VIP access at Disneyland.
Yeah.
So that's the part
This
that
is
like
not like your
yeah,
experience.
I wouldn't care because if I'm him, my daughters are going to Disneyland and they're going to get front of the line access for everything. So I guess I would have to suck it up and go.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Guys, who is the Cardinals player that you're most excited to see in spring training? Can I go first?
Sure.
Sure.
Matt Carpenter? Oh, don't act like you're not happy he's back.
You were so excited
You
about
were
him a week
so
ago.
excited. You're like, oh, I don't know why everybody's complaining. Matt Carpenter's a great person to have around. Leadership.
That is what happened.
Victor Scott, by a wide margin, is the guy that I'm most excited to watch at Cardinal spring training. I want to see him get a good amount of playing time this year in spring. I know as the spring continues on and it progresses, you're going to see a lot of Tommy Edman in center field, and you should. And Dylan Carlson to get his spots, he should as well. Early on, though, I would love to see a lot of Victor Scott. I want to see how he looks going up against legitimate major league competition. So get him opportunities against major league starters. That's the guy that I want to see. I want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I would like. I'm excited to see Sonny Gray, and I know that seems dumb because you're going to see plenty of them, but this is the first time that they've spent this much money and brought in somebody of this high of ilk in terms of a free agent for a pitching side. I'm very excited to see what he has to offer for the longevity of this spring training.
Yeah, I would say Scott is my number one, but if I'm going to go different, the other two guys that I'm excited about, Thomas Ajacey, who took the minor leagues by storm once he was acquired last year at the trade deadline. I'm excited to see what he looks like. And then a pitching prospect that I'm intrigued by. I've seen him pitch once, and I saw him as a starter, but I'm curious to see what he looks like in camp would be Gordon Graceffo. I feel like he's been talked about for the last 2 years, I would say. I think they're going to come to the conclusion he's probably a bullpen arm, but I'm excited to see what his stuff looks like, because if he has a good camp, I could see where he ends up making this bullpen come opening day.
Tink Hence is another one.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hopefully see him in a starting spot.
TK Roby.
Yeah, Roby will be fun. Hintz last year, man. I think I saw him twice on television. One time wasn't great. The first time, though, oh my gosh, the stuff looked good.
By the way, John Batiste is another one that I bet you he's a part of the halftime show in some capacity.
I thought you were talking about a Cardinal prospect. I was like,
No,
did you make that name up?
Someone brought up Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah. Those are the kinds of people that I think you could see involved in some capacity. I don't know.
Frank Ocean. I'm just looking through names right now.
I don't think he'll be a headliner.
Oh, Master P.
Yeah, that'll for sure be the route that they go with the NFL. I think there will be a lot of people that are involved. This could be something where they just put together kind of a...
Dude, Master P and Lil Romeo, father-son duo at halftime.
Yeah, that would be their...
That's how you do it, man.
Way to go about
Juvenile.
I feel like this could be similar to the one that you loved a couple of years ago, Alex, where it was just all of the rappers and musicians from the early 2000s that T-Bone had never heard of.
That was the best.
Do that, but with
show.
the New Orleans musicians. You could do something like that and it'd be good. But you got to have somebody as the front man. You got to have somebody that goes out there and like puts it all together in some capacity.
Yeah.
I don't know who that person will be. All right, coming up next, does Steven Matz have the potential to make up for what the Cardinals are missing in their rotation? We'll talk about it. Discuss it next here on 101 ESPN. All right, so Steven Matz is somebody that I don't think we've talked about enough this offseason. There was a really good piece over at Cardinals.com by John Denton earlier today talking about all of the things that Matz has done this offseason to hopefully stay healthy this year. He said his first 2 seasons in a Cardinals uniform were a failure in his mind, and I think that's fair. It's been totally underwhelming at best and a legitimate failure at worst. When they signed Steven Matz, Alex, you remember my response. Cool. That was it. Nothing more, nothing less.
I thought that was different.
A perfectly fine starter. But you can only be that guy that I said, cool, about if you're healthy. And he has not been healthy over the past couple of seasons. But the season prior to him becoming a Cardinal, he was really good. 150 innings, over 30 starts for the Toronto Blue Jays. You don't expect a ton of innings out of him. That's fine because the effectiveness is there and the strikeouts are there, something that the Cardinals are severely lacking. So what I wanted to ask you about, Alex, we focus a lot on the number 2 starter in the Cardinals rotation, how they don't really have one right now. If you wanted to be a Cardinals homer, put on your Mo bow tie and try to speak highly of what they have there, you could point back 2 years ago to what Miles Mikolas was, and it's not hard to say, hey, he threw 200 innings and had a sub-3.5 ERA. That's a number 2 starter. True, now the rules are different, and he doesn't have any swing and miss, which I do think matters. But, okay, I can at least squint my eyes and understand how you get there. But even if I believe that to be true, who's your number 3? Because I don't think Lance Lynn really projects to that at this point in his career. He once upon a time did, but not now. Kyle Gibson is a 4. So who is the number 3 starter in this rotation, even if you have that number 2 guy? I think it needs to be Steven Matz. I think he's the answer. And as I looked in yesterday at the Braves, Phillies, and Diamondbacks options for their number 3 starters in their rotation, it made me even more firm in this evaluation. The Braves' number 3 starter going into this year is probably considered to be Charlie Morton. He had a 3.6 and a 4.3 ERA over the past 2 years. Really solid. Strikeout rate, pretty good. Gives you about 160 innings per year. I like Charlie Morton a lot. He's a legitimate number 3 starter. Ranger Suarez, the number 3 starter right now. Hopefully they don't sign Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. But as of today, he's their number 3 starter in Philadelphia. Last 2 years, ERA of 3.7 and 4.2. And then finally, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Their number 3 starter is Eduardo Rodriguez. He's had an ERA in his career ranging between a 3.8 and a 4.7. Basically, every year he's in the low 3s or the high 3s or the low 4s in terms of his ERA. This really does get back to Steven Matz, where it's like, okay, if you can be the guy you were for the Blue Jays, the guy the Cardinals thought they were signing, he has the upside to go head-to-head against Morton, Suarez, Rodriguez, and you have that number 3 starter in your rotation. But, Alex, what's your level of confidence that he can reach that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very high. I mean, first of all, raise your hand if you had on your bingo card Steven Matz, the first one the Cardinals would say just came to camp in the best shape of his life.
Oh, I could have heard that one. Yeah, I could have put that on my bingo card.
I wasn't expecting Steven Matz to be in that category, but he pulls that one off.
I'm expecting a Carlson one too.
Carlson and a Lance Lynn. I've seen pictures of Lynn. He does look slimmed down, but I'm waiting for the best shape of his life. I'm not going to disagree that he could be a number 3 starter for you, because even last year, I think he showed the ability to be a number 3 starter, and his numbers showcased that a 3.86 ERA with 105 innings. You want to see more innings, but that's the ERA you're looking for as a number 3. My concern is just the injury with him, because Steven Matz has this trend in the 2 years in St. Louis to where he starts the year off poorly. He looks like a number 5 starter, like he can't find the strike zone, and you're wondering what the hell's happening. He then gets injured. He then goes to the bullpen for a little bit of a stretch, and he looks great, and then he gets that run again in the rotation, and then he gets injured again. And it's a trend that worries me, because you can sit here and say, like, well, yeah, he could totally be your number 3 starter. But, like, are we talking about 5 starts? Are we talking about 8 starts? Because the number 3 starter is great, but I don't really care if he's a number 3 starter for me in May, June, and July. I need a number 3 starter in August, September, and October. And I don't know if he has shown that in his entire career to be that type of pitcher in August, September, and October. So I have confidence that he could give that to you. He's got the swing and miss stuff. He's a guy that can give you 5 innings of really good stuff. But I just don't really care if you give me that in June or July. I really need it late in the season.
Yeah, I think Steven Matz can do it, but I think it's more in spurts than it is for a full season. And I don't even say that as like a bad thing. I think that's fine. Like, look at Brandon Pfaadt and what he did for the Arizona Diamondbacks. That guy was not a 3 for Arizona all year long. But what happened? He got hot at the right time and pitched like a 3.
And that's what I'm skeptical of.
But I think Matz can do that. My concern would be just, does he stay healthy for a full year? And if he is healthy, then maybe he can do it for a full year. But I would be totally fine by saying, like, hey, Steven Matz is going to be our number 3 at some point this year. Maybe not at the beginning, maybe not in June and July, but the hope is by the time you get to October or when you're pitching down the stretch in the playoff race, that Steven Matz is that number 3. So I don't mind going into the year saying, hey, Steven Matz can be that guy for us in spurts. And my hope would be that Lance Lynn, if everything turns right for him, he can be that guy in spurts as well to be a number 3. So I think they're in a good spot with the number 3.
If I told you, I locked it in right now, I've got a Magic 8 ball, and it said, I ask it, will Steven Matz start 25 games this year for the Cardinals? And it said 100% yes. He will get 25 starts for you this year with the Cardinals. Are you confident that he alone is good enough to be that number 3 starter? Like, you're locking it in, 25 starts, 130, 140 innings for you. That is set in stone, and I'm not telling you it's behind a wall in terms of what the ERA is, the effectiveness is. Do you think that with 25 starts this season, Matz would be effective enough to be that number 3 starter for you?
If I had to put a number on the confidence from 1 to 10, 10 being highest, I'd put it at 6. Like, if you're giving me 25 starts from him, I'm a little more optimistic than pessimistic that he could give you somewhere around a 3.6, 3.9 ERA in 25 starts. But that's you guaranteeing me he's playing 25 games.
And that's the hardest part. Like, the biggest question, this is why I'm asking, is because I think the biggest question about Matz is just durability.
See,
I don't really question his effectiveness when he's out there.
But see, that's the part I just don't know.
As long as what we saw at the end of last year was real.
But that's the part. Is like,
he starts it so slow.
I don't think he was hurt at the beginning of the year last year when he got demoted to the bullpen. So, like, it's hard for me to say, like, if I guarantee 25 healthy starts, I know what I'm getting from Matz. I think when everything is right and everything is clicking and he is healthy, yeah, he can be a number 3. And that's why I say, like, if you told me out of those 25 starts he's going to be a number 3 for half of them, I'd say, yeah, I could believe that. But for all 25, like, I don't know, because I don't think it's just health issues that have had part of his struggles. I think 2022, the struggles were injury-related. The beginning of 2023, though, I do not think was a injury-related concern for him.
I think it was a lack of effectiveness. I think he was just off. I don't know if it was timing. I think he was tipping his pitches a bit. I don't think he had confidence in his changeup. And when you have all of those things that come together, you've got a guy that's just off. And now he needs to go to the bullpen, get himself back, get the command going again. And the intent, you hear that a lot from Ollie, right, with his pitches. I don't think it was there early on in the season. He didn't seem to have any authority over what he was throwing, and then finally he started to get there, and then he gets hurt again, which has been the case each of the last 2 years. Right when he starts to kind of find his groove, season ends with a significant injury. So I would have probably a 7 in terms of my belief in him as a number 3 starter, as long as I'm getting the innings, as long as I'm getting those 25 starts. But my confidence in him getting to that 25 starts is incredibly low. It's like a 3 right now. I mean, you look back at what he's done over the last 4 seasons, he's just not a guy you've been able to count on for that durability.
I just pulled this up. The first 10 starts in 2022, he had 37 1/3 innings pitched and a 6.03 ERA. Last year, 10 starts, 53 innings pitched, 5.6 ERA.
Yeah,
and then you look at what he's done in the second half, it's been around 3.4 or lower in the second half.
And though that first half is disappointing, and depending on what Lynn and Gibson do, it could really set the Cardinals back. As long as he figures it out by the time you get to October, I have no issue with it, because I think he can be a 3.
See, that's where I'll disagree. I actually think you have to have him start off well this year because of the way that this team is constructed and because of the questions that are there that exist going into the deadline. You need not a hot start, but you need to be good early this season. You can't have a season in which you're kind of meandering and right around 500, maybe a little bit below. That can't be the way that this team operates. And if you don't get quality starts, and I'm not talking about literally quality starts in terms of 6 innings, 3 earned runs or fewer, 5 innings. Give me 5 innings consistently out of Steven Matz of 1 to 3 earned runs. And if you get that out of him, man, I feel like this team could be really good in 2024. But it's hard for me to believe that they're going to get that when you're right, Alex. They got 10 starts, 50 innings, so he's going 5 innings for him, but giving up a 5.7 ERA in his first 10 starts of last year. They went 2-8 in those games.
Yeah.
That you can't overcome that. That is too much for this team to be able to overcome because now you're not getting deep into games and you're not having the effectiveness within those innings. If he starts out that way, he will once again be replaced by Zach Thompson, Matthew Liberatore, TK Roby, Michael McGreevy. They will have somebody else that comes in and replaces him in the rotation.
And that's the dangerous part because when you're relying on those younger players to carry you through a certain time of the season, you're putting more emphasis on Lynn and Gibson, which I don't trust.
Well, see, where I would disagree with you on, they have to have Steven Matz do this before the deadline. They have to have one of Matz or Lynn do it. I'm more skeptical if Lynn can do it. But man, if last year was a one-off, I mean, your favorite stat, he has more swing and miss than Ohtani, then he can pitch as a number 3 if he just keeps the ball in the ballpark. And look, I'm more skeptical of that than I am of Matz. One of those guys has to pitch like a 3 until they get to the deadline.
Yep, and it's something that they're going to lean on. I don't know that it's something that you can count on. Somebody on the text line asks, what is a fair question? Guys, how many starters last year made at least 25 starts over the course of the season? The answer is 80. There were 80 starters that made at least 25 starts last season. So if you average it out, it's like 2.5 to 3 per team that were able to get the 25 starts. I think the Cardinals need 4 of them. Going into this year with the way that they're constructed, I think you need 4
I think
starters
you better go sign
to make
Jordan
at least
Montgomery.
Am I wrong here? Do you guys disagree
No,
with that?
I think you're spot on. The problem is I don't think you
I
have
don't think
4
your
of them.
depth is actually improved from
I
last
don't
year.
either.
I think they keep saying this, and we act like it's true, but it's not.
No.
Like, they have better options in the 5-man rotation. I totally believe that. Their 6, 7, and 8 guys are the same dudes that they put out there last year.
But I don't even think they have good depth in their 1 through 5 because my problem is like when a team has good depth, if I lose
I think you have
one
more
big
certainty in your 1 through 5.
if you lose Miles Michaelis, you're comfortable where your team is at?
No, but that's getting into 6, 7, 8. I'm totally in agreement there. Like their
Oh,
6,
okay.
7,
I
8
gotcha.
starters, they're the same as they were last year. It's Zach Thompson, it's Matthew Liberatore. It's the same guys. The difference is you don't have Dakota Hudson this year.
gotcha.
Instead of Dakota Hudson, it's Michael McGreevy, which is, I mean, basically one and the same. Neither of them strike anybody out, and they didn't develop the way that the Cardinals expected them to. So I don't know why I'm supposed to believe now that depth is so great, so excellent, when it's the same dudes. Now, your double-A depth, the guys that are coming in 2025 and beyond, I do think that is what has improved. TK Roby, Tink Hintz, you have upside that is lower down in the minor leagues right now. But your upper levels, it doesn't have a lot of guys that are significant contributors for your major league team. It's a bunch of the guys that you leaned on a year ago, and you went out and you signed Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, so that way you didn't have to do that again. So it's hard for me to believe that the depth is significantly better, but they're 1 through 5. Yeah, I think there's more certainty there. You don't have to worry about Jack Flaherty or getting Adam Wainwright back on track this time around. I do think there's more certainty. The depth it's not all that improved, even though they're trying to sell you on that.
Jordan Montgomery's still sitting out there.
Coming up in 15 minutes, I would sign Blake Snell personally. In 15 minutes,
No, he can't find the strike zone.
the Blues are starting to eliminate the excuses that they kept bringing up a year ago, and I commend them for it. We'll get into that at 12:30. NFL Quick Hitters coming up next here on 101 ESPN. All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Guys, I am curious, when you look at what I'm kidding.
You know what? My stomach's starting to feel a little weird. I need to go home and take more medicine. I'm out.
So there has been a lot of talk around the NFL over the last 24 hours or so about what this offseason is going to be for teams across the league, especially at the quarterback position, Alex. And one of the teams that is squarely in the national spotlight right now is the Chicago Bears. Now, over the weekend, I don't know if you saw this, the pregame show, Adam Schefter was talking about the Bears offseason plans. And he said kind of offhand, yeah, there's been discussions about what you do. Do you draft Caleb Williams? Do you trade Justin Fields? Do you draft Caleb Williams and keep Justin Fields? Maybe keep both of them? And that drew a lot of attention. Like, okay, hold on. The Bears are talking about keeping both quarterbacks on the roster?
No sense.
It's something you have to at least discuss. You don't do it because it would be stupid to do so. But in those offices, yeah, you should be having every conversation. What would option A, B, C, D, F look like for the Chicago Bears? Because you're the team that holds all of the cards this offseason. You got a quarterback that has value on the trade market, and you have the #1 overall pick in a year where there are multiple quarterbacks that people think are worthy of being the #1 overall pick. The reason why I bring this up, Alex, there is now a new rumor out there that Justin Fields is a prime target by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin, apparently, according to Adam Schefter, loves Justin Fields. How would you feel about that as a fit for Fields if he is indeed traded?
I think it's a great fit for him. I think it's a bad move if you're Chicago because I don't know what you're going to get from Pittsburgh. I mean, unless...
Second-round pick, probably.
Which sucks. I mean, it sucks. And I don't think you're probably going to get more. Like, the ideal scenario if you're Chicago is to trade him to New England and get their first-round pick, but I don't think that's going to happen.
That much for him.
I mean, in terms of Justin Fields, though, if my career wants to take the major step forward, it would be with Pittsburgh because I think Mike Tomlin could get the best out of Justin Fields. I think that's desperately what Pittsburgh needs is a quarterback that can control games and actually be a mobile threat. And at least he's got weapons to work with in Johnson and Pickens, whether you like it or not. But, yeah, I think that would probably be the best fit for Justin Fields. And if they're interested, I'd look at Chicago and say, that's where I want to go.
I also love the fit with Arthur Smith.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Coordinator.
Yeah, I love it because Arthur Smith, the reason I connected him to the Falcons was because of Arthur Smith. You're going to be run heavy. It's going to lead to play action. He'll utilize Justin Fields' legs as well. I like the fit, and I think I like it more because of Tomlin, but I think Arthur Smith is a nice kind of cherry on top to help him out. I would question if he'll work well with Pickens, but you know what? That's something you just got to try.
Move on from Pickens if the problem.
You have no solution. You're not, and you weren't bad enough to get into a good spot to draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, I heard them talking about this on the morning show earlier today when discussing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and who the AFC team is that could dethrone them as soon as next year. I've got a little bit of a different question for you. Who could be the Peyton Manning to Patrick Mahomes version of Tom Brady? And what I mean by that, early on, Brady 2-0 against Peyton Manning in the playoffs. Did you know Manning actually ended their careers, though, with a winning record in the playoffs against Tom Brady? Peyton Manning 3-2 straight up in the playoffs against Tom Brady. But it started out with Brady getting the wins, and that's how we remember it. We all remember it for what the narrative was early on. Manning was the choke artist, Brady was the winner, and that's how they're both remembered accordingly. Who could be that guy? Who could be the guy that struggled early on in their careers against Mahomes, but eventually ends up maybe overtaking him in a couple of playoff games?
I mean, a lot of people are going to pick Joe Burrow here. I'm going to go with the guy that I've put all my chips in the middle for. I think it's C.J. Stroud. I think C.J. Stroud is going to be the guy, and he hasn't struggled against him because they haven't seen him in the playoffs yet, but I think C.J. Stroud, if they build that team properly, I think within the next couple of years, you could see a Houston Texans team make a little bit more noise against the Chiefs than anybody else has. I just think he's the only competent quarterback we've seen other than Joe Burrow that could find a way to legitimately beat a Patrick Mahomes and a Kansas City team.
Yeah, I really like that one because Stroud was really impressive in his rookie year. If you're not going to say Burrow because Burrow's had success in the playoffs against him.
Yeah, that's where I think it changes things a little bit because he had so much early success. I think that's a little different. That would be more like Big Ben.
Yeah.
Burrow would be the Big Ben in this scenario.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is one.
I think it might be Herbert. And like I
interesting.
I became a little less.
With the new coach?
Yeah, I became a little bit skeptical of Herbert after this past year, but I just looked up his numbers. He's been really good against Kansas City in his career.
The Chargers play the Chiefs every year. That is their Super Bowl, and they make it really tough on them.
Yeah, he averages 286 yards a game against the Chiefs in 7 games against them. Now he is 2-5, but again, that's kind of the team around him. And he has 6 interceptions, but to 16 touchdown passes. So I think if there's a guy, and look, he's got to. This is the year he's got to prove it. I think Lawrence is in that same conversation. I think if there's the guy that's going to do it, I think it's the guy that's in his own division, and I think it's Justin Herbert.
Man, I'm between two players because I think both have a lot of the qualities that Peyton Manning did in terms of regular season success, but playoff failures early on.
So fun. I think I know where you're going with it, but I'll let you.
It's Allen or Lamar.
And see, I don't understand that because both have just shown the inability to do it, and their teams are taking the worst steps towards fixing it because now they're costing more money.
True. This was the Peyton Manning discussion as well, though. How quickly we forget. Early on in Peyton's career, dude, he was a choke artist. He was a guy that could never get it done in the playoffs. He put all of the regulars. He had 5 MVPs. You can make a pretty strong case, like just from watching him, you could make a case that Peyton was the best quarterback to ever play the position. Tom Brady is clearly more accomplished, and I will forever say Brady the GOAT, right? Like, we'll have the conversations about Pat, but Brady was the GOAT. No doubt about it whenever he finished his career. But Peyton had a lot of regular season hardware, and that's the Lamar discussion. Lamar already has 2 regular season MVPs at this point in his career, borderline unprecedented. The dude is unbelievable. He just fails so spectacularly in the playoffs. Eventually, I do believe Lamar will get his. I just don't know that he's going to be able to get multiple, and that's what Peyton eventually was able to do, and that's why I go with Josh. If Josh can just settle down, just chill out a little bit, and I don't know that he's ever going to be able to.
No, man, you can't do that.
Like, let me take you down this path. Let's walk down a yellow brick road together for a moment. The Bills have an okay but not great season this year. They decide to fire Sean McDermott at the end of the year and hire some young, hotshot defensive mind named Bill Belichick. And Bill Belichick becomes the head coach of the Buffalo Bills going into 2025. Are you telling me you wouldn't have a lot of confidence that, hey, maybe this time it's going to be different?
Yeah, I would have had more confidence if they would have gotten Jim Harbaugh, too, in Buffalo. So, yeah, I'm not.
I think he can do it. I do.
Not.
I think Josh Allen will eventually get his Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think,
maybe even multiple.
See, what's funny about this is I was just going to say it. I don't even know if the conversation should be who can dethrone Patrick Mahomes. I think the conversation should be who will dethrone Patrick Mahomes when Andy Reid's gone. Because I think as great as Patrick Mahomes is, like, we got to give credit to what Andy Reid drew up in that final play of overtime. Like, that's all Andy Reid making that decision.
I just, like, Josh Allen, for the most part, has been great in these games against the Chiefs. The 13 seconds game, he won it. It was over. Yeah. He was unbelievable. He went scorched earth against the Chiefs.
Terrible time management.
And he had the unfortunate bounce of having 13 seconds left on the clock against the best guy I've ever seen do it. And that was too much time. And then the Chiefs got the ball first, and boom, it's over. And you leave, and you're like, what just happened?
Wow. But the Chiefs cheated because the overtime rule.
And then this year, like, I thought Allen was really good for like 3.5 quarters, and then he makes one mistake.
See, that's the thing is, I'm not going to dream on him never not making the mistake. And the same is for Lamar. At this point, I know they're going to do it, even if it is Belichick.
Oh, and that's Lamar for me.
Yeah, I don't trust them when it comes to it. Like, I totally agree with everything you're saying. Like, they have that ability to do it. But I know they're going to make that one mistake that's going to cost them. And that's why I just cannot look at them and say, yeah, they're going to change and they're going to be able to top Mahomes.
And that's Lamar for me. I will never believe in Lamar Jackson because in the playoffs, he gets way too... The same way I feel about Dak Prescott in the playoffs is the way I feel about Lamar Jackson. You get too skittish. You don't know what to do. You overthrow your receivers. And the only game you have is running the ball, and you always fumble it.
So let me give you real quick, because I think we forget about this sometimes. And T-Bone, you were like literally a toddler, so it's pretty reasonable for you to not remember this.
Me too, man. Me too.
This is what Peyton Manning did early on in his career in his playoff games, okay? His first career playoff game, they lost 19-16 against the Tennessee Titans. He completed 45% of his passes, no touchdowns, no interceptions. The next one, against the Miami Dolphins, goes on the road, loses 23-17, completes 53% of his passes for 190 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. The next one, lose 41-0 on the road against the New York Jets. Completes 45% of his passes, 135 yards through the air, no touchdowns, 2 picks. That's his first 3 playoff appearances. Has not yet won a game. And then finally, 0-4 happens. His team isn't very good this year. They win in Denver against Denver 41-10. They go into Kansas City, a team that finished the year 13-3. Neither team punts in the entirety of that game. He throws for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, is borderline perfect as a quarterback in that one. By the way, in his first game, literally had a quarterback rating that is perfect, 158.3 this season. And then goes on the road at New England and loses. 1 touchdown, 4 picks, 230 yards through the air. Boom, season over, choke artist because of that game. Despite in the previous 2 games, basically being perfect, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. Then he continues from there. Next year, 20-3, loses again on the road in New England, 230 yards, 1 interception. We're at 2006, loses again at home against Pittsburgh, 21-18, 1 touchdown, no picks. Finally, we are in 2007. He has gone to the playoffs, I think it's 7 years, and every single time choked it away. And in 2007, they finally are able to do it. We think it can happen quickly for these guys, but it's because Brady and Mahomes have completely changed the way that we assess the position. Manning didn't do it until he was 30, man. He was 30 years old. Patrick Mahomes is 28 right now. He's done it 3 times already. So I'm still holding out belief that one of Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, and I would place my money on Allen, will be able to go ahead and get this done. There's a little history lesson for all you kids out there. That
I feel educated from that. Thank you, actually.
Peyton Manning and how much he struggled early on. I hope people remember how excellent Peyton Manning was. That dude was unfreaking believable, and it gets forgotten because of the playoff failures early on in his career.
I liked Eli better.
I liked the third brother.
Eli shouldn't even be a Hall of Famer, and Cooper nobody remembers.
What are you
Coming
talking
up in 15
about?
minutes,
Cooper's
we're
the
diving into the
best.
junk drawer. Alex has some stories from his 2 weeks off. If you think he was just sitting at home chilling, boy, do we have something coming for you. We'll get into that at 12:45. But next, I respect that the Blues are finally eliminating the excuses from their game. We'll discuss it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care. When it comes to your HVAC system, you've got to have somebody that you trust. And Classic Air Care is a company that I've been trusting with my HVAC system for the last 6 years. When we moved into our house, it was an old unit. And of course, when it comes to HVACs, it's a pretty penny you got to spend for it. So you try and keep it lasting as long as possible. And I sign up for the maintenance program, which means they come out before I flip on the air in the springtime, before I flip on the heat in the fall, and they check the unit. They clean the unit. They tell me that it's old, but they say as long as you take care of it, it's going to last you. And so I do that with Classic Air Care. And it's not just me. It's been a Ferrario family thing. My dad's been using Classic Air Care for 30 years. They've been making people comfortable since 1926, and they provide that trust when it comes to your HVAC system. And if you don't believe me, check out the hundreds of positive reviews that they have on their Google reviews. This one coming from Hannah. My heat went out and they were able to send Eric out the same day. Even though I was the last stop of the day, he took time to diagnose the problem, fix it while explaining the issue to me. I had working heat by the time he left, and I'm so appreciative of the patience and hard work. That's the type of customer service you get at Classic Air Care. Tell them I sent you, Alex Ferrario, and find out why I love using Classic Air Care. ClassicAirCare.com.
Taylor Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale, and then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffautoPlex.com. Are you kidding me?
The St. Louis Blues aren't using the same old excuses this year that they did a year ago. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, last year, you remember how annoyed I would get. Oh, the travel, it's so hard. We're in Seattle, and then we have to go to San Jose, and it's a back-to-back. We got in at 4 a.m. Tough luck. Everybody in the NHL deals with difficult travel. And it just kept coming up and coming up. They're like, oh, we're in LA. We've got an off day here where we're sitting at the pool and it's 80 degrees outside. And we're so upset about the way that this schedule is. Stop it. Enough. Enough with the complaining about the schedule. I was so tired of hearing about it. Just go play the games and give your best effort, see where the chips fall. Well, last year they stunk, and that was the real reason why they ended up losing a bunch of games. It was a bad team. It didn't have to do with the schedule. It wasn't anything about the line combinations. The players on the team weren't good enough. And for whatever reason, the locker room had dismissed the messaging that was coming from its head coach. That became clear this year. Well, they're not having those same excuses right now, Alex. We have seen this team now go on the road, and they go to Calgary, they go to Vancouver, they go to Seattle, the dreaded West Coast Canada trip. They went 3-0 against those teams. Now you're going up to the East Coast, Buffalo, Montreal. I understand these aren't great teams, but in the past, it's been a real concern about going on the road, especially in a back-to-back situation.
Where you were off for 11 days for an All-Star break.
And they go up and they play some really inspired hockey, not just win the games. They looked inspired. They looked like the better team on the ice in each of those first 2 games coming out of the break. Now you're up in Toronto against a team that has had their ups and downs, to put it mildly, that has a defenseman that's mired in controversy right now. And this is an opportunity for you to be able to win 3 straight games once again on the road coming out of the break, and then you come back home for a significant homestand here. Dude, I respect the hell out of what we've seen from them. I hope they can finish this thing off right, especially going up to Toronto. If you as a Blues fan want to start getting some respect, the place to do that is in Toronto, where all of the national hockey media resides. They're all watching these games. When you're in the NFL and you're a team and you go to play the Jets or the Giants, guess what? If your team wins there and they look great, you start to get a little more respect. It doesn't matter ultimately, but that's how you get it. In Major League Baseball, New York, LA, those are the places where you want to get your respect, play well against those teams. In the NHL, it's against Toronto. If you do it well in this game, and then again when they come here next week, you're going to start getting your respect from that media.
And the team that they take on Thursday in Edmonton. Sure. I mean, you take on 2 of the top Canadian teams. Those are the teams that you got to prove yourself against. And look, this road trip and their past 3-game road trip were deciders of their trade deadline, in my opinion. Now, they could lose a little bit and things could change, but you look at that 3-game road trip out west, you win all of them. You look at this 3-game road trip, if you pull out 1 point against Toronto, but 2 points and continue this hot streak, Doug Armstrong has been on these road trips with the team. He's seeing what we're seeing, which is going to dictate some of the decisions he's making. But I also think that the area that has been most impressive that they've improved is what you just mentioned, BK, their play on the road. I don't know if people understand how good they've been on the road. They're going for their 6th straight victory on the road tonight against Toronto. If you look at what they've done since Drew Bannister took over on December 13th, they are the 5th best team in the National Hockey League in terms of road play. They've played 10 games. They've got a 700-point percentage. That's better than Boston. That's better than Dallas. That's better than Winnipeg. That's better than Toronto. That's better than a lot of other playoff caliber teams. Now, you go to the goals that they've scored per game, top 10. Goals that they've allowed per game, top 10. Power play. Power play.
On the road.
4th best power play in the National Hockey League on the road. So now don't look at their shots per game because they're the 2nd worst team in the National Hockey League.
I mentioned this to T-Bone the other day. At this point, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer. I want to see what they look like. Toronto, Edmonton, Nashville, Toronto again, and then Winnipeg, Edmonton. Those 6 games over the next 2 weeks, that'll tell you if this is real or not. But I'm starting to feel the way that I did going into that 2022 postseason. Remember, we talked with a bunch of people who were like, okay, the numbers all say this is not a good hockey team, but I've watched them all year, and I disagree with the numbers. I'm just pushing them aside because I think the Blues have something here that the numbers, for whatever reason, aren't accounting for. I'm not all the way there just yet. You guys know I trust the numbers, but to a degree. There's a certain point in time where you have to say, hey, man, I just trust my eyes here. The Blues are getting there. Yeah. They're starting to make me veer closer to that side.
In the shot percentage, what's so interesting with it is you do trust your eyes over the numbers because, it's a percentage you think that they can't last with, but look at how they're scoring the goals. They're standing on the doorstep tap-ins. Like those you don't miss. And the Blues, that's the success of the power play. But going back to the road success, BK, you always talk about, what's the more important factor for a team? Is it their home play versus their road play? Right now, if I'm the Blues, it's great to be good at home. You're 15-9-1 at home. That's important. But, man, if you can become a road warrior team like you were in 2019, that's more important right now. Because in 2019, you had more games in the regular season on the road than home, which, if I'm not mistaken, you have a little bit more road games than home games the rest of the way this year. But when you get into the playoffs, if you get into the playoffs, the first two games first two series, if you go the distance, you're going to be doing it no matter what. But that first series, you're playing on the road. You're the underdog.
Yep.
And the team that you're taking on
They'll likely be on the road the entirety of the playoffs.
No matter what. The team you're taking on is either the first or the second best team in the Western Conference. And if you create this identity that we can't be stopped on the road, which right now they're playing that way, they're not giving up a lot, and in tight games, they're finding ways to come out on top, man, that's an area that if Drew Bannister has instilled that confidence in this team, that's a dangerous factor to have for a St. Louis Blues squad compared to just being a good home team. Like, I look at teams that are great at home and say, okay, but what else do you have to show for it? Like, Vancouver's a great example. They're 18-4-2 on home ice, which is awesome to say. They're 17-8-4 on the road. Still very good.
Well, look at Colorado, 20-5 at home, 12-12-4 on the road.
Look at Vegas, 19-6-2 on home ice, 12-10-4. Edmonton, 14-11 on the road. Go to the Eastern Conference with the Boston Bruins. Boston, 15-5-6. That's actually better than what I thought. It's like, to me,
Tampa, though, 11-15-2 on the road this year. They've really struggled in those situations.
I just think it's more important where you're at as a Blues team to figure out how to be an entity on the road than to be at home ice.
Yeah, and they're eliminating the excuses.
Yeah.
It's no longer about the travel accommodations. It's just, hey, go out there and play hockey, man.
School.
Just go out there. If we play our game, we're going to have an opportunity to win this one. And you're getting such great goaltending right now.
Right.
That's the backbone of everything that we're witnessing. And it's why I'm starting to wonder, like, okay, can we just push these numbers aside a bit? Benner and Hofer, every night they're giving you an opportunity to win. It's like having really good starting pitching. Yeah, if you don't have a great offense, it's tough to win that way. But, man, the Guardians have shown you over the years you can win that way. We've seen it with the Tampa Bay Rays at times in the past. They've got a good offense now, but in the past it's been like, hey, run suppression, run suppression, run suppression. That's going to be the way that we find a way to win here. The Blues might be finding a way to do that with excellent goaltending, even though their defense is just okay.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's better, but it's just okay right now. He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Blues at the Maple Leafs tonight. Pregame for that one starting right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN with Alex at 5 o'clock. They'll have the puck drop with Curbs and Joey in Toronto tonight at 6. Coming up at the top of the hour, how much does spring training matter for Mason Winn? It seems like there's some differentiating opinions on this. I'm on one side. Feels like the writers that cover the team are on another. We'll get into that coming up at 1 o'clock. The Junk Drawer is next here on 101 ESPN. right, let's dive into the junk drawer. It's been a couple of weeks for Alex, to say the least. The first week he spent in Disney World with his 2 daughters and lovely wife. And then last week, his wife's in New York on a business trip. So Alex is spending the week at home with his kids. Alex, over the next couple of days, we're going to explore some of the adventures that
You
took
guys
place.
are going to get a trilogy of Alex's vacation.
You can take this in any direction that you'd like, sir. You have the next 5 minutes.
All right, well, that's 5 minutes. My goodness. Let's start with the Disney trip. Tomorrow, you can stay tuned for the sequel, and then the next day we'll get the trilogy of it. But let's start with Disney. We got to Disney, no big deal. Now, reminder, last year we did Disney World with our 2 daughters. My oldest was, I think she was a little over a year. Our youngest was like 6 months. So very easy trip. The 6-month-old didn't do much. They both had no issues. This trip a little different because both of my children do not want to ride in strollers. They both want to be out and run.
Of course.
And I've got a daughter right now, my youngest, that she's entered her demon stage. And what I mean by that is if you try and tell her to do something, she turns red and she just screams. So we would go see Mickey Mouse, and we had to wait in line for Mickey Mouse, 45 minutes. That child did not want to be held for 45 minutes. And I don't know if you've seen these lines before. They're roped off. Everybody's standing in tight quarters.
Yep.
A little child doesn't want to do that. So I'd try to hold my daughter, and she would do this exorcist demon turn for a good 45 minutes. It would just be every time. And then when you try and put her in a
Alex
stroller.
is standing, go to Disney World, they said. It'll be great.
I got home and I told Katie, I said, we're not going for a good 5 years.
I just picture Katie looking at you during that moment going, I wonder what he's thinking.
It was, and then when you try and put her in her stroller, she's like mastered the art of putting both feet and arms on the stroller. And you can see this on YouTube. I'm going to try and mimic this. She does this like parachute where she's,
Oh, the bridge?
oh yeah. She goes
yeah.
stiff. I can't get her in the stroller. Anyway, so that was that. Overall, it was
The
good.
bridge is quite the move, by the way. It's
she
in
is-
any situation. It works for everything. If you're trying to hold them, boom, bridge the neck back. Nope, not going to sleep.
And I'm the parent that's like holding one leg trying to bend it while the other's I look like I'm abusing my child. I'm just trying to get her in. Anyway, overall, it was fine. We saw the characters. They were very happy. But let's take you to the final day.
Oh, gosh.
The final day, we're going to Epcot. And Epcot, the main goal, because we fly out later that evening, we do Epcot in the morning. The main goal is Anna and Elsa. So we take the Skyliner. For those that don't know, it's kind of like this fast way to get to the park. We're taking the Skyliner. My oldest, we think she gets motion sickness, but we're not sure. She just sometimes when she's uncomfortable, she's just everywhere.
Good.
So we're on the Skyliner. We're
like I
riding
know where
on
this
it.
is going.
She's fine, having fun. We get to the park. We're running. Daddy's got to get her to Anna and Elsa. We get in line for Anna and Elsa, and you wait in line in this cottage like it's their home.
Yeah.
And so we're waiting in line probably 25 minutes. We're standing in line. We're navigating through. Everybody's doing fine. You know, my daughter's doing the demon thing. We get to the front of the line.
We are exorcists at Alex's Disney World trip.
We get to, I'm telling you, man, people in that place were like, what is wrong with this little kid? We get to the front of the line at Anna and Elsa's cottage. So we're standing by the doors where they've opened them. We go in to see them. And out of nowhere, I hear everyone in the back going, ah!
Oh,
Like, what just happened? My oldest, who might be motion sick, not really sure, she pukes all over the Anna and Elsa cottage. Like, no joke. It was probably 5 to 6 projectile vomits on the floor. So bad that everybody behind us did this like, oh! Like we had so much space in the damn place. And I felt so bad for my daughter because you could tell she was embarrassed.
Sure.
She was crying. Yeah. She was sobbing. She puked all over her Elsa dress.
No.
I felt awful, and we're waiting in line. And so
you just stay there? So
we
you're
stayed there. I thought we were leaving, and then they're like, "No! You don't have to leave." Like, God bless the employees at Disney World because they were so good with her. They had one lady who was consoling my daughter. They had another lady who came in and helped us clean up the vomit.
Sure.
Meanwhile,
Alex is on his hands and knees.
oh yeah, I was. But this is the best part. Some other kid behind us also got sick and puked
Because of the
because
smell.
of my daughter. So now there's kids puking everywhere. and so luckily
That would be me. When I see or smell puke, it's over. It's
So bad.
coming. It's just, I got to get out of there. I would have left the line because of your daughter. I would have been like, I've waited an hour. It's not worth it. Babe, we're coming back later.
Also, I got my demon daughter going, "Ah!" So luckily we take the Elsa dress off. We got to change of clothes. We put it on her. I didn't think it was a sickness. I just thought it was motion sickness. They were great. They let us go see Anna and Elsa. We get in, we get through, no problem. Finish the rest of the day. We're skeptical. We're a little skeezy because we're worried she's going to do it again. But we get back. We get to the airport. We get on the airplane. We're coming home. We gave Adelaide Benadryl on the airplane because we were trying to get home. Middle of the flight. It's probably 9 o'clock at night. Wakes up out of a dead sleep and goes, "Daddy, my tummy."
Oh, no.
Leans over and vomits all over me. All over me. Now, luckily, I was smart enough to do like a little...
I'm going to get sick
I know.
now just thinking
Luckily,
about that.
Shirt scoops.
I did the basket of the shirt. I caught it all. And then the air flight attendant, she came over. She goes, "Do you need a trash bag?" I said, "Yes, as fast as possible." Guy's going to puke. Don't, dude, I might. So we got home. And my wife, oh no, he's going to do it. My wife felt so bad. She goes, "Go lay down, go shower. I'll take care of bedtime." So, needless to say, part one of this trilogy that was Alex Ferrario's vacation required a little bit of
I can't
exorcism.
stop thinking about your
And
shirt.
a lot. Actually, it's kind of funny how they coincide.
Stop,
The
stop,
Exorcist vomits all the time. It was just two different daughters, but that was the most magical place on earth. We just everywhere.
That
all
definitely
over-
sounded like the happiest place on earth.
So if you go check out Anna and Elsa's cottage and you see a stain on the ground, just remember that was Adelaide Ferrario that took care of that.
From the 314. Guys, every parent that I've ever spoken to about taking their kids to Disney before they were old enough, like 5 years or older, every single one of them to a man says it was miserable and they refuse to travel with their children until they're older because of it. I have a 4-year-old. We found taking him to an all-inclusive is the best place to take the young kids because it's affordable. They can eat whatever and whenever, and a lot of them have kids water parks and things to do for them that no need to be on a strict
I
schedule.
will say, as great as Disney World is, they've got to do something about the character visits. Like, you can't expect children to wait in line for an hour and a half to see somebody.
So the best way to do it, for any of you that are parents out there, this is just my only piece of advice. Character dining is the way to go, man. So that way you don't have to wait in the lines. It's expensive.
The character dining for us, Adelaide only cared about certain characters, and they didn't have those available.
And that's
the hard part. Yeah,
it's brutal. But if you can go to the character dining, you just knock out all of your visits. You're eating while you're seeing them. They'll come over to your table. You can take a picture, get the autograph, whatever. That's the easiest way to do it. But if your kids want to see like Anna and Elsa, there's only one way to do it, man. You got to go see them.
I'll say this. This sounds like a miserable trip. They were better, like for an 18-month-old and almost a 3-year-old, they were better than I would have expected. Like, they were very chill most of the time. Boy, it was just that last day that was like, I told Katie, I said, I got to get the hell home. And I said, I got to just bathe and bleach because I feel disgusting.
I wouldn't recommend doing that. That's probably not good.
Believe me, I thought about it.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone. I'm
Stay
BK.
tuned for tomorrow.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a
vomit.
game of Bet It or Forget It. But next, how much does spring actually matter for Mason Winn? I hope not at all. We'll discuss why coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
I'm excited to tell you that Ted Drew's officially open for the 95th season. The famous frozen custard, a St. Louis tradition since 1929, is open for its 95th season. And everybody talks about spring training being the start of spring. Man, for me, it's when Ted Drew's opens because I get to start those family traditions again. Friday nights off of Chippewa, standing in the parking lot, eating some Ted Drew's famous frozen custard in the trunk of our car. And I'll tell you, what I also love about Ted Drew's is it remains a family family-owned and operated business. It was founded on the motto of our business is service, and now when you go there, that tradition continues. I was going with my family when I was little, and now my 2 daughters get to go and enjoy it. And it doesn't matter if it's cold out, if it's hot out, you know that you get that famous frozen custard. And while you're out there, walk across the parking lot, check out the famous frozen custard gift shop where you can get a unique variety of apparel, souvenirs. They've got kids and adult sizes for whatever you need. So go check them out off of Chippewa and find out why it really is good guys and gals. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard.
So Mason Winn is going to enter spring training as the Cardinals' expected opening day starter at shortstop. And that shouldn't change if he goes 0 for 75 or 55 for 55 over the course of spring training. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, I don't think the spring training matters at all for Mason Winn when it comes to what he does offensively. Now, if he's like booting the ball around and just looks totally uncomfortable defensively and it looks like the pressure's getting to him, okay, now we can have a conversation. I don't expect that. I would be surprised by it. And so let's talk about the offensive side of things, because that's really where the questions are right now for Mason Winn. Alex, I've been surprised by how much I've seen written by Derek Gould, by John Denton, by Katie Wu, reliable sources that are plugged in with this team. They cover the team on a day-in, day-out basis. I've been surprised by how often I've seen this offseason them write something to the effect of, man, it's a big spring for Mason Winn. Cardinals want to see him show the offensive approach that they were hoping for coming off of what was a disappointing end of the season offensively for him in the majors. And they then wrap it up by saying, if they don't see it, maybe Tommy Edman has to be your starting shortstop and you go with Dylan Carlson in center field. I could not disagree with that more. Now, I'm not telling you that I'm right and what they are reporting is incorrect. I'm saying I would have a different approach from what appears to be what the Cardinals are approaching this spring training as. Just let him get out there and get comfortable. That's it. That's the entire approach to Mason Winn this spring. Mason Winn, you are our starting shortstop on opening day. Approach it with him the way that you did last offseason with Tommy Edman, where you came into spring saying, we've got a very, very good shortstop. His name is Tommy Edman. He's starting for us on opening day. Now, don't deviate from that approach the way that you did last year when Paul DeJong eventually got healthy and he took over. But the point is, Edman was your starting shortstop no matter what he did in spring training, no matter what the results looked like or what he did in the World Baseball Classic. Alex, do you feel that way? Would you approach it the way the Cardinals do? Or are you surprised by how much they're talking about the possibility of Winn starting the year in AAA?
I am. I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish with Mason Winn. Like, I know that he hit 172 last year and 122 at bats, but like sending him back to the minors, what are you trying to accomplish? He had over 400 at bats in AAA and had a 288 batting average. He had over 400 at bats in AA and had a 258 batting average. You send him down to the minors, he's going to do the exact same thing. He's going to be elite defensively, and he's going to be up and down offensively. What are you trying to accomplish sending that guy back to the minors? Are you hoping that he figures it out offensively more and becomes a 350 batting average? Who cares? Mason Winn is a part of this team because he is an elite defender at shortstop, which also allows you to play a above average defender in center field. If you're telling me that I got to start the season with Dylan Carlson in center field and Tommy Edman at shortstop, I'm a lot more concerned about my team's overall defense than if I've got Tommy Edman in center field and Mason Winn at shortstop.
It also limits your flexibility later on in the game. Like, there's just so much.
Well, yeah, now you're keeping another shortstop on this team.
Correct.
Over an Alec Burleson.
Yeah, or over Mason Winn. Like, if you're not having Mason Winn as your starting shortstop on opening day, he shouldn't be here.
Exactly.
He should be down in AAA. So Mason Winn is now removed from the roster, and in his place you have some utility infielder. Yeah, like
hey, buddy.
Buddy Kennedy is now suddenly on the roster, and that's not somebody that you want to be a part of this team. You're getting significantly worse by doing that, both defensively and potentially with the offense as well. I just think this is easy. You don't have to make it more complicated than it needs to be. We've seen year after year after year, these spring training results are not indicative of what's going to happen over the course of the regular season. I've been trying to tell T-Bone this for 5 years now.
Listen,
it seems
man.
like. And every year, T-Bone gets...
Right every year, though.
There are some things that you can take from it, right? If you see
I knew Taylor Motter was going to play a big role on the Cardinals last year.
I would also add, shouldn't have, but he did.
That's an Ollie problem.
You can see things that are noteworthy. Like, hey, this pitcher has a new pitch, and it seems like he's using it in a way that might allow him to open up certain results, right? Like, going into spring training, I'm going to be curious to see what it looks like for Palante with his new pitch mix. He's got a new dead ball that he's working on. He's got a slider that he's been working on. Hopefully both of those are improved. And if he's able to get better results against, if he's able to now suddenly get out righties and lefties, that'd be good. That'd be really impressive for him. That's something, though, that is less about the results of it and more about, okay, let's see what these pitches look like. If they get crushed, fine. But if you see the metrics and it looks like, okay, this might be sustainable over time, that's worth noting. The overall, like, batting average numbers for Mason Winn in spring, I could not care any less.
He's not here for his offense. He's here for his defense.
Now,
correct.
I'm with you guys. I hope that that's the way they approach it, because otherwise, like I was hyperventilating last week while you were out about, they don't have a backup center fielder. Carlson can do it in a spurt if needed, but you can't rely on him up until like the All-Star break until Victor Scott could potentially be ready. They need to sign a backup center fielder if this is the case. But I think the devil's advocate to what the Cardinals would tell you, and I don't necessarily totally disagree with it, is every write-up that we've seen, prospect ranking systems have been coming out all leading up to spring training here. And everybody from Keith Law, who we talked to Kylie McDaniel, who we talked to, says, hey, his bat can be really good. Like, he could be a 280 hitter. What the Cardinals would tell you is if he gets off to a slow start, and I don't even know if it would be spring, I think it'd be more of like if his April was just horrendous at the plate, what they would tell you is, we need to send him down because we don't want him to lose confidence. And if he loses confidence, we don't think he can eventually develop into the guy that those write-ups are saying.
But at some point, you got to give him runway. Like, I remember us talking to Mason Winn last year, and he said, he's a guy that starts off slow, but if you give him more and more time, he figures it out. He said it happened at AA and at AAA. Yep. What is the point of putting him through spring training, playing him at over 100 at-bats last season, and then saying, you know what, go figure out your offense, and we'll bring you up in a little bit.
T-Bone, your point is valid for most players. There is nothing about Mason Winn, his personality, his persona, that would lead me to believe that is a guy that loses confidence. I think he just goes out there and keeps swinging. Yeah. And he knows, hey, my value, and I think this is something the Cardinals should tell him. Hey, man, you're here for defense. anything you give us offensively, that's a bonus for us. Treat him. He's not Yadier Molina. I understand that. But the treatment of him, the way that you approach him in your lineup every day is the way that you approached Yadi in his first couple of seasons in the big leagues, where you said, and TLR used to say this all the time, hey, anything he gives us offensively is gravy, because look at how impressive he is, how important he is for us behind the plate. Now, the value of a shortstop is obviously different than a game caller and a backstop the way that Yadi was, but the point remains. And the other thing that I would add is, man, if this lineup is what they think it is, and they believe that it's going to be really, really good this season, they absolutely do, then Mason Winn's bat is the least important in that lineup, and you should have a top 7 that is able to make up for one guy that is significantly below league average offensively. If you've got one automatic out in that lineup, and you've got 7 other dudes that are well above league average, and then Tommy Edman, who is at league average and is playing Gold Glove defense in center field, your lineup is not going to be your problem this year. It's not. The rotation might, the bullpen could be, but your lineup should be good enough to make up for one black hole at the bottom of the order. And yes, that is even if the dude hits like 170 this year. I can't tell you how little I care about his offense.
Yeah.
I do not care. That guy is here for his glove. That guy is here to be amazing with his arm. And that guy is here to create havoc on the bases whenever he does get on. I don't want to see this team mess with him as the starting shortstop. Your entire team, the construction of your lineup, the day-to-day fitting certain guys into one spot, all of that hinges on Mason Winn's ability to be your starting shortstop, and Mason Winn's ability to be your starting shortstop should not be determined by if he hits in spring training. That's not where he's winning.
And
for
maybe
you.
this is too cruel, but I really don't care what Dylan Carlson offers me. Dylan Carlson is the 4th outfielder for this upcoming season. And sure, maybe you can change my mind. Maybe if you get an opportunity, but that opportunity is going to come if an injury happens. Like, you should not be unseating any of the Lute Nootbaar, Walker, or Tommy Edman for the outfielders, because Tommy Edman, although I don't believe it, he earns the opportunity to be your everyday center field for how he performed last season. Maybe the bat's not there, but if I'm talking about 2 guys that bats might not be there, that means there's 7 other guys that I'm putting a lot of stock in. And guess what, guys? The Cardinals have an offense that everybody believes is going to be great. Does it really matter if Tommy Edman and Mason Winn hit less than 300 at times this season?
If it does, it means that the other guys didn't carry their weight.
And
if
that's
they
more the
don't-
problem.
And if they don't, then they've got bigger issues.
Yeah.
If Walker and
And Dylan
Gorman
Carlson's not changing that.
No, and Arenado and Goldie and Contreras and Donovan, if those guys aren't hitting, and Nootbaar, if those guys aren't hitting, yeah, it's going to put a lot of pressure to get somebody at the bottom of your order to start picking up the slack. But guess what, guys? If those guys aren't hitting, the season is screwed. It's going to go off the rails no matter what Mason Winn does. Even if he's hitting 250, that's not going to be enough to make up for a lack of offense from those other big bats in the middle of your order. A prerequisite for this season is those big bats performing the way that they were expected to. If that doesn't happen, then you're screwed no matter what, whether Mason Winn hits 280 or 170.
Yeah.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, Better to Forget It here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. Her and her team are always at work getting people the most competitive rates when it comes to your car and home insurance. And look, when it comes to saving money, Tracy and her team truly are the best. But the other reason why I would advise you to check out Tracy Bibb is because of the customer service. When something happens, and look, something will happen, whether it's to your car, whether it's to your home, you got to make sure you're taken care of. But the worst thing is when if something happens, a flood in your basement, a tree falls on your roof, your car gets into a fender bender, and you're waiting to get a response, an 800 number, and nobody calls you back for 3 weeks and you don't know what to do. That's not the case with Tracy Bibb. Her and her team are always available for you by giving her a call at 314-328-4260. She'll take care of you, and she's contacting you to keep you up to date with your rates and what falls underneath that coverage you have. So give her a call today. Tell her Alex Ferrario sent you, and you'll get a free non-committal quote with Tracy Bibb. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Oh, how I missed that. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Guys, bet it or forget it. By the end of the season, your starting shortstop is Mason Winn. The starting center fielder is Victor Scott.
By the end of the season?
By the end of the season.
Wow, you're just trading away Tommy Edman, aren't you? Huh? What are you going to do with Tommy?
Utility.
Do I need one when I got
Traded in
Donovan?
the offseason.
Yeah. What about Brendan Donovan? What's he for you? Chopped liver?
Playing all over the place.
You got Matt Carpenter.
Potentially my starting second
You got Matt
baseman.
Carpenter as your
I think
utility
Donovan's
guy.
going to be your starting second baseman.
Well, where the hell's Nolan Gorman? In Seattle, and Logan Gilbert's pitching for the Cardinals?
He's got to get his back worked on.
DH.
Yeah. Crap. I'm going to bet this one. I do think Victor Scott will be up here because I think they're going to realize that they, as great as Tommy Edman was, it was kind of in a pinch, and I don't think it's there long term. And I believe the Cardinals are going to value speed at the end of this season, and Victor Scott is going to be providing it. So I'm going to bet this one. I think that's your duo up the middle by the end of the season.
Oh man, I'm going to forget this. I think if everything goes the way the Cardinals are planning, which means they're a playoff team, I think Scott will be up here late in the year, but he'll be here as like more of a pinch runner, defensive substitution player. I don't think he'll be here for the starting center field job. I think their hope is that if they are competitive, he's not going to be taking on that role until 2025, where he'll then go into spring competing for it. The only way I see him being the starting center fielder by the end of the year is if you think this team's out of it again, and they'll do what they did with Mason Winn.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm forgetting this as well. I love Victor Scott. As a player, as a prospect, everything about him, it is a player that was made in a lab for me. I think his role this year, come postseason time, I think he'll be on the roster, but I think it'll be as a backup outfielder who comes in as a defensive replacement late in a game, and then if you need somebody to steal a couple of bags for you, he can be your version of Terrence Gore, but more skilled from a baseball perspective. So I'm going to forget this. I don't think he'll be your starting center fielder, but I'm rooting for it. I think it'd be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. Alex, what do you got for us?
Bet it or forget it, guys. By the end of this season, we are talking about Binnington and Hofer as in the Jennings Trophy conversation.
We talked about this a bit yesterday.
Yeah. Do you know top 20 in goals saved above expected? Both of them are.
Yeah.
The reason I don't think they'll win it is because of Boston with Swayman and Ullmark. But I think by the end of the season, you're going to be talking about a top 3 1-2 punch in the National Hockey League is those two guys.
It's so interesting, man, because I'm not sure either of them is a top 5 goalie this season, but both of them are top 20. And so it really depends on what do you value more? Do you value having two guys that anytime they go out there can perform at a legitimate starter level, like not a replacement, a legit starter level? Or do you care more about having one guy that's probably going to start 60 games for you on the season, and when he's out there, he is an elite level goaltender? Because if you prefer that, that's not the Blues. So I'm going to say forget it, but it's because they don't have the dude going into this season.
Yeah, I would forget it too, because I'm kind of with you. I think they're a top 20 tandem, and I think they will be kind of overlooked this year. Unless they do, I think they have to do something special as a tandem kind of in the playoffs, and then they'll be more viewed as like, I don't want to call them favors, but they'll be in that top 3 category going into next year.
Yeah, I think next year is going to be an interesting one because I also think Boston trades one of their goalies going into next season, and might make the Blues as
one of into last year.
Yeah, I mean, they arguably are one of the best 1-2 punches in the National Hockey League right now because I don't know if other teams have backups to the capability that Joel Hofer is.
So if you want a like 50-50 split, it's probably Boston. They're the team that's doing that the best right now. And if you want one that has one elite level goaltender and then another one that's pretty good for them, it's Winnipeg. Yep. Those would be the 2 teams right now that I would probably look at as the favorites for something like this, depending on which version of that.
Which is interesting because, like, if Winnipeg's in that conversation, and I mean, they've got Hellebuyck, who is going to win the Vezina this year, but among the other teams, I'd put the Blues in that conversation.
Yeah, they've gotten into the conversation in a way that I was too dismissive of previously.
Which was a Ferrario 5 bold prediction in the offseason.
Was it? Good for you, man.
Look at me coming through.
Guys, bet it or forget it. A Cardinal not named Sonny Gray, Paul Goldschmidt, or Nolan Arenado will make the All-Star game this year.
I'll bet this. I think somebody will. You said Paul Goldschmidt,
not
Nolan Arenado,
not Paul Goldschmidt,
Sonny Gray,
Arenado,
right?
or Sonny Gray.
One of those
I figure
3?
they're big 3. One of
Gorman
those
could, Walker could, Newt could. Newt could because of the
fan vote.
The fan vote as much as anything else. I think those are the 3. You could see one of your bullpen arms, probably Helsley. So, yeah, I think there's enough outs in this for the poker term to be able to get somebody else into the All-Star game this year. I'm going to bet it.
I'm going to forget it because I don't know if the Cardinals are going to be viewed as one of those top teams by the All-Star game, and I think the vote is going to be the one player from the team, which is going to be one of those top 3.
I would bet it, but I think it would have to take... They have to be winning, and if they're winning, it's because of their offense. And that's why I would say, like, when he mentioned Gorman would be the guy that I could circle, or Newbar.
See, the one that I would circle that would be most likely out of those not named the guys you mentioned is Wilson Contreras.
And that's a good
Because
one.
the catcher options, if his offense is there, he'd be the guy that gets in.
I feel like he's the most forgotten player heading into 2024.
I do too, and I'm looking forward to seeing him.
And I blame myself for that as well. I just mentioned 5 different guys that have a chance to make the All-Star game for the Cardinals.
He was their third best hitter.
I didn't mention him.
Yeah.
And he could absolutely do it. Last year, he was amazing in the second half.
And how many catchers in the National League are you taking over Wilson Contreras?
Well, defensively, a lot.
Shut it. Shut it.
Will
Offensively,
Smith, I'm taking over him.
Real Muto, I'd still take.
You're taking over him. Is that the list?
Would you take
Maybe
Sean Murphy?
Brother, but it's like...
Would you take Sean
6 to 1
Murphy over him?
See,
Murphy's interesting because, like, he didn't hit at all down the stretch.
He failed down the stretch, man.
dude, he didn't start for them in the second half, and then in the playoffs, like they basically gave the job to the other guy.
So we just said that he's a top 3 catcher in the National League.
Yeah. I'd say
3 to
top
5.
4. I would take his brother slightly ahead of him, but you can hear the argument.
Gabriel Moreno, I would take over him.
Yeah.
I love Wilson Contreras, though, man.
Yeah, I think the reason I say it could be like, and
That's
I think
your
the
guy. It's
reason
always been your guy.
I think the reason we forget about him is unlike the names that we just said, like Newbar, Gorman, Donovan. There's like more to dream on for those guys. Like Gorman, man, he stays healthy. You can dream on 40 home runs. Newbar stays healthy. You could think of 20 plus home runs and a guy that's getting on base at like a 350 clip. You look at Donovan, you think, oh, what if he adds 20 home runs? For Contreras, you don't talk about him. Why? Because like even though he had a slow start last year, he finished like right around his norm. In fact, a little bit better. That's why I feel like he's kind of forgotten, as you're always dreaming about the guys that you don't talk about and don't know what really to expect.
It's not at the same level, but Contreras is kind of like Goldie in that over the course of the season, there's a lot of variation. It's up and down and up and down. But by the time you get to the end of the year, you kind of know exactly what the numbers are going to look like. It's like 20 to 25 home runs. He's going to have an OPS that's like right around 20% above league average. You're like, really good year by Wilson Contreras, even though for like a month he didn't hit, and then a month he was scorching hot. It's a weird way to get there, but
we wouldn't even be complaining about Wilson Contreras if not for Jack Flaherty.
Whoa.
The whole situation, but yeah.
Jack Flaherty, the guy doesn't know what the calls are.
Did you see
Shut
today?
it, Jack.
Someone, I don't know who it was. Someone posted a video. And
Oh, is
Sonny
he already
Gray
complaining?
was like, it looked like he was like yelling at Contreras, but it was more of like they were fired up and just talking. He's like, I'm going to like Contreras, I think.
Jack Flaherty's probably he's in Detroit, right?
Yeah.
He's already complaining about the Detroit catcher doesn't know how to catch for him.
He's good.
Very confident. If there is one prediction I'm very confident in, Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn are going to love Wilson Contreras. Those two personalities with Wilson and how fiery he is. Oh, yeah.
And Kyle Gibson loves everybody, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, until Contreras calls
And
for
Michaelis threw to him all the time.
Yeah.
last year.
And Steven Matz, well, he'll
until
be
Lynn
healthy.
goes, I
hopefully.
don't throw a slider, I just throw fastballs. What are you talking about, Contreras?
That should be the easiest thing for Contreras. You just put a 1 down every time.
Let's get to a few of these from the text line, the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is the place where you can go as well for Better to Forget It. Guys, better to forget it. The Cardinals win 80 games this year, finished third in the Central, and just missed a wild card spot.
80 games for the Cardinals.
80 and 82.
Better than last year.
Oh, God. I'm going to forget this one. Like, I know I'm the most pessimistic about the Cardinals on this show, but I got a little more optimism than that. 80 wins? Oh, man, I'm going to be insufferable this season if this team wins 80.
If they win 80 games, everybody's fired, right?
No, should be.
That's enough.
Mo gets a contract extension. Chaim Bloom gets promoted. Long-term contract for Miles Michaelis.
So I'm gonna forget it, but can I be honest? And maybe it's because I'm around the team, or we're so locked in on the team all the time. I'm starting to become more pessimistic about this team because I
don't think they're a 90-win team, but I'm thinking 85.
That's what I agree with. But guys, I have serious questions about the rotation, and if like these old guys, show their age and they're injured, they have no depth behind them.
But I thought
that going into last year.
But they've got the 2011 offense.
13.
Sure,
13
2004.
offense is better than 11.
I'm forgetting
2004.
this, but I could totally see myself going in open day going, oh God, this is not going to be good.
No, there's a lot of scenarios in which this goes poorly.
Very.
Yeah.
I just, 80 wins. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be so surprised at 80 wins because they were ass last year, but I mean, come on, guys. 80 wins if they get 80 wins with this offense, everybody should be traded.
All right, a couple quickies left. I'm forgetting this. You guys know. I think they're going to win 88 to 90 games and finish first in the division. And
Put down the cherry Kool-Aid.
we're going to get to this a little bit more later on. I think the biggest reason why people are pessimistic about the Cardinals is actually because of the first month of the season, and I think we're vastly overstating the significance of that month.
They flop there.
It's going to be.
Because I agree with you. They flop there, they're going to suck.
Agreed. All right, better to forget is Zach Thompson throws at least 120 innings in 24. I'm betting it because I think there's a lot of injury risk in this rotation.
Yeah, I'm betting it. I think you're going to see a lot more of him than you want. Between your bottom three, I think you're going to get maybe a combined 25 starts.
I think he's starting out in AAA.
Hold on. I just sounded my little tiny red alarm panic button because
I think
relax.
No, the reason why
Nothing's
I'm
gonna go
relaxed is because I
wrong.
actually think Zach Thompson might be better than some of the guys that he would replace.
If that's the God, we're gonna suck. You know what? Didn't help me at all.
All right, final thing. You're better to forget it. Caleb Williams is the #1 overall pick to Chicago, and then they trade up as Houston did last year to take Marvin Harrison Jr. in the top 3.
I'm betting this one. I don't know if they get Marvin Harrison, but they might get that other wide receiver. Oh, God, what is his name?
From Washington.
They're going to get another wide receiver with Caleb Williams and have a 1-2 punch. So I'm going to bet that they trade up.
I'll bet it because that sounds fun. So I'm just all in.
There you go.
I love fun.
All right, coming up next, Torey Krug, ladies and gentlemen. Has he found a way to change his narrative from what it was going into this season? Alex seems to believe so, and he'll explain why. Coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Circa Sportsbook in Illinois. This is sports betting the way that it should be. It always should have been this way. They got those tight money line splits. Alex nearly had a big-time parlay that hit over the weekend, and because over on the Circa Sportsbook in Illinois, they've got those tight money line splits, he would have won more than he would have on another app had he placed the bet there. That's what they do at Circa Sportsbook. We are almost to the month of March, which means the tournament is just around the corner. Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and download that app today. Be ready for when March hits.
Yeah, look, and when it comes to Circa Sportsbook, they're not limiting players based off of their winnings. Everybody is going to have the same limits, unlike other books that you're going to bet with. They're trying to make sure that if you're the big bettor, you're bringing in the most money possible, and you get the best customer service with this. You're talking to somebody, not just a bot, when you call the Circa Sportsbook app. You're getting the same service that you would if you were in Las Vegas. So give them a call or check them out on that sportsbook app, Circa Sportsbook Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Tara Hendrickson here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey joins Chris Kerber for puck drop at 6. This sports update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent Maker Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, so it needed to be a good year for Torey Krug here in St. Louis if he was going to change the narrative surrounding him. Most of the fans, I think, by mid-June last year, most fans here in St. Louis has had enough. They were ready to see Torey Krug go elsewhere. He did not, however, want to leave, and so he nixed the trade that would have sent him to Philadelphia, which was his contractual right, and he was going to be a Blue for the 2024 season at a minimum. Alex, I think he's changed things. I think the way that he has played this year, and maybe it's as much about the way that others have played around him as it is him, but I think he looks like the player that the Blues signed him to be. Is he great? No. Does he have liabilities defensively? Absolutely. But Torey Krug is somebody that has helped your power play get back on track this season. And when he's been on the ice without Justin Falk, he's actually been pretty good. Like, even the underlying numbers suggest, hey, Blues more than fine when Torey Krug is on the ice without Justin Falk. And for the most part, they've actually been okay when Justin Falk's been on the ice without Torey Krug. The problem appears to be they shouldn't play with each other. I think they're too similar. They're both offensive-minded defensemen.
Right.
And so when they're stuck in their own zone, it turns out it's not a great thing for the Blues. So I think Torey Krug has changed his narrative because he's finally playing with a stay-at-home defenseman in Matt Kessel, who is the most average of average defensemen. But, man, that's good enough because of the style that he plays.
That's just it. And, so December 30th was the first game that Torey Krug played without Justin Falk. That's when Matt Kessel stepped in. So it's a total of 16 games. Now, Justin Falk came back for, 6 games before he got injured. And in those 6 games, Torey Krug was a -7. So in total, the 16 games with Matthew Kessel, he's a -12. But you take out those 5 games that he played with Justin Falk, in 11 games, he's a -5 with 9 points, and he's playing about 22 minutes a night. Like, that's really good compared to what, now, mind you, I guess I shouldn't say really good because it's still a minus with 9 points, but that is much better than what Torey Krug has been in the last 2 seasons with the Blues. But he's also producing the points. He's got 4 points at even strength and 5 points on the power play. Like, Torey Krug, he's not a number 1 defenseman. He's never expected to be a number 1 defenseman. But for $6.5 million, he's playing 22 minutes a night, and he's not as much of a liability as he was in the past. And here's the other thing that I'm starting to notice. I kind of scoffed at when Doug Armstrong made the comment of, he brings a nastiness, he brings a tenacity to the game during that press conference when Berube was fired. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, he brings it more than anybody else does on this team, at least lately. It's him and Jake Neighbors that have the probably most pissed off attitude on the roster. And I got to be honest with you, if you're going to give me 2 players, Justin Falk or Torey Krug, this season, I'm going to take Torey Krug. I think he's playing a more 200-foot game. I think with Matthew Kessel, he knows what his defined role is, and he's having success with it. Matthew Kessel also is starting to open up a lot of people's eyes. He's been on the ice for 3 goals against since he's played this season. I don't view Torey Krug as much of a guy that you have to trade if this team wants to have success, as I did at the beginning of the season.
I don't think Justin Falk is a bad player. I want to say that on the front end here. I think there would be a team that would probably take on Justin Falk, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go on to have success with that team. I think he's a pretty good defenseman, solid. I do think he needs a very specific situation to be successful, though, at this point in his career. And I think we saw that in 21-22. Going into that postseason, we all really liked what the Blues had. He was a plus 41 on the ice that year. Pretty damn good, right? We'd all take that. But other years that he's been in St. Louis, -3, +11, -4, -5. He hasn't really seemed to find a home here. And maybe that's because they've been trying to get him to work with Torey Krug, and it hasn't clicked for whatever reason. But I think that he's the guy that needs more around him to be make him comfortable than Torey Krug. Because Krug knows exactly who he is as a player and what he's not. And it's not great defensively, but he can make it work, and he's been able to make it work the entirety of his career. I don't really know what Falk's role is on this team. Like, when he comes back healthy, I think he should be your third-pairing defenseman. And that sounds crazy because he's a better defenseman than Matt Kessel. I absolutely believe that. He's more talented. He's a better player. But for what this team needs, I think Matt Kessel makes more sense next to Torey Krug. And I think Justin Falk makes more sense next to Marco Scandella. So I'll be very curious to see how all of this comes together in a couple, 2-3 weeks whenever he is healthy.
The hard part with this is you're going to have one guy playing on the third pair at $6.5 million because of the contract signings. Like, that's just the position you put yourself in. What you can't do is you can't see the success of this team and try and force a square peg into a round hole. When Justin Falk comes back, you can't sit there and say, well, he's $6.5 million. We got to play him in the top 4. No, you need to keep the pairings as is. You keep Leddy and Parayko. As much as I've ished on Nick Leddy, he's played well with Colton Parayko in this last stretch. I can't deny it. Torey Krug and Matt Ketzel are a very good and reliable defensive pairing. When Justin Falk comes back, you're playing with Marco Scandella.
Agreed.
And if you don't like it, well, them's the ropes, because we're not breaking up Ketzel and Krug because it makes Krug useful.
Coming up next, we're going to give you an opportunity to win a pair of tickets to see Luke Bryan at Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. We'll tell you the details on that coming up on the other side, and we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind with the early season schedule for the Cardinals, which I think is getting way too much attention. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
YouTube.com/101ESPN STL is another place that you can go
How
to
has the
find...
graveyard been? I haven't checked it. Seems pretty peaceful. Is it peaceful?
Well, the name is the graveyard.
Well,
so,
but again, graveyards can be peaceful, man.
I would say they're bigger fans of you than me.
Well,
That's fair.
Thank
well,
you.
that's for everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's get into the rewind. Alex, one of the things that people are talking about for the Cardinals, and it's been a significant topic of conversation all offseason. It rubs me the wrong way, is the first month of the season and how, quote, difficult, end quote, the schedule is. I'm going to give you the win totals from Vegas on the teams that the Cardinals play in the first month, okay? You tell me if this sounds like overwhelmingly tough. They start out with the Dodgers. That's difficult. I'm going to set that one aside, though, for a second.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that are going to have... Everybody has to play the Dodgers at some point. You just happen to play them to open up the season.
Dodgers are going 162-0.
They're going to be really good. Their over-under is at 103. I would take the over. Honestly, I really would. But after that, these are the win totals for the teams, again, that you're playing in the first month. The Padres are set at 81, 500. The Marlins, 78. The Phillies, 89. The Diamondbacks, 83. The A's, 57. The Brewers, 77. The Mets, 82. So the only teams you play in the first month of the season that are projected to win more than 83 games are the Phillies and the Dodgers. That is not an overwhelmingly difficult schedule. What you're doing is you're playing teams that are in the same pool as you. All of the 500 teams, Padres, Marlins, Diamondbacks, Brewers, Mets, those are all teams that are similar spots to you heading into the season. The only team of that group that is actually projected to have more wins than the Cardinals is the Phillies. Guys, we got to stop with this. It's not an overwhelmingly difficult schedule. It's a schedule that's representative of what everybody's going to have to play in the first month of the season. Playing the Dodgers sucks. It's tough. First, to open up that way, brutal. It's a 3-game set. Anybody can win over the course of a few games. If you get 1 or 2 of those, you feel good about it. You walk away, you're good. But this will not be the reason the Cardinals fail if they fail this year. It's not the schedule.
The only teams that are tough to me are Phillies and Dodgers. Like, I can understand the Diamondbacks if the rotation stacks up correctly where you're taking on their top 3 pitchers. But again, we're talking about an offense that we're all super high on. Like, the reason it's so daunting for Cardinals fans is because you know what your pitching staff is and you look at the offenses that you're going up against. Like, those are some good offenses that you're going to be facing, regardless if we believe they're playoff contending teams. But, I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. But your offense is supposed to be elite.
Yeah, I don't think the schedule's tough. I'm with you guys. Now, I will say this. They get out to the slow start like you saw last year, there is no discussion. I would say the season is going to be a long one.
Now we're talking 80 wins.
Because I think they should be about 500 through that stretch. I can see where they end up being a little bit below. I can see where they end up being a little bit ahead. But if they're like, what were they, 9 games below 500 at the end of April last year? They're in that realm again. You can go ahead and write it off.
Absolutely.
It's over.
But that'll be because of the quality of the team, not the quality of the opponents.
Yeah. Exactly.
It'll be a reflection on you, not a reflection of the teams in which you have played. That's Tanner. He's Alex. I'm Brandon. Kylie. Right now is your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Luke Bryan coming up on July 28th at Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Those tickets are on sale right now. 101ESPN.com is where you go to find more information. Or you can text in right now. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Earlier today, Alex told us his daughter threw up getting ready to go on a ride. What was the ride? What was the ride in which Alex's daughter threw up? If you got the correct answer to that in your texter number 101, you are getting that pair of tickets. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.